Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Blue Sunday. And this is Vince Lochisano, along with, just popped in, Steve Katib over there on the right and Chris Beach on the left of your screen. Good morning. Oh, good morning. Oh, God, where am I been? Good evening, guys. How you going?
Good, Vince, yourself?
I must be thinking it's morning because I've got a coffee with me tonight instead of the usual cold drink. So anyway, good to see you both. And we missed you both last week, as a matter of fact. So I believe you're at a soccer game that was well worth missing, and you should learn your lesson now. Don't give up an edition of Blue Sunday for anything. It wasn't a very memorable match, Steve.
There was a red card, and as you know, some teams fail to adapt when they go down to 10 men, especially with one half remaining.
Yes, indeed. And Beachy, what did you make of that Melbourne victory, 3-0 loss to the Perth Glory last week at home?
It was not a great result, Vince, especially when Perth have been trying to ram down our throats that we should have forfeited the FFA Cup qualifying spot to them, considering we wound up travelling to Perth to begin with. But nonetheless, we got them during that, and they got us during the season. So I'm afraid it's 1-1 for now.
Yep. Well, there's always next week, isn't there, gentlemen?
Yes.
Anyway, there's been a huge week in sport, and of course, our show concentrates on the Carlton Football Club in the AFL for most of the year. But of course, this being the off season, we're discussing all the sports, all the popular sports, I guess, especially during the summer months. This being our summer edition, so we're going to discuss cricket and golf and soccer and motor racing, and maybe even touch on a bit of tennis before the end of the show. And we'll certainly concentrate on harness racing as well. Last night's big Inter-Dominion finals. I'm sure you wouldn't have missed that for the world, Steve.
I saw the highlights. I didn't see it live, but I definitely saw the highlights. And what a great carnival!
A lot of controversy.
Yeah, the protest.
Yes,
I'm sure we'll go into that.
In the history of harness racing, we have had a protest that has been upheld, and the result reversed from the two horses past the post. Protest second against first was successful, and I actually think that was the right decision too. After having looked at it, but anyway, we'll have what's that? Yeah,
I was going to say you don't often get a protest in the trotting code. You obviously will in gallops. But to have it happen, especially on the big stage, such as that one, and then have it overturned, is huge.
It's like having a protest in the Melbourne Cup, really. I mean, in harness racing terms, it's like having a Melbourne Cup overturned on protest. So anyway, we're going to have Luke Humphries, our fabulous young race caller, join us a bit later in the show to discuss the Inter-Dominion finals, and he was also at Stall today, calling the Stall Pacing and Trotting Cup. So he'll give us a big wrap-up of what happened last night as well as what happened today over at Stall. So look forward to that. So we've got a big show lined up. Let's talk AFL first. Of course, during the week we saw a partial reveal, I guess you'd call it, of the AFL fixture, and the first 9 rounds have been established. The final 14 rounds haven't quite been established in terms of venue and times and dates, but we at least know who we're going to be playing in those rounds. So I see that Joe Lutzer over there in Bangkok, Thailand, has joined us all of a sudden. Yeah, Joe, how are you, mate?
I've been better. My nose is killing me.
Oh, your nose.
Yeah, as I told you, I slipped.
Sticking your nose in where it isn't welcome as usual?
Basically, I slipped the other day. That's what all battered men say. And my wife beat me up. No, I slipped on a loose tile at a coffee shop and face planted the ground and broke my nose.
Oh, well, you'll be successful in suing the establishment based on their public liability insurance policy, won't you?
Yeah, I went up to them and they went, huh? I didn't even get a free coffee. Anyway, no, listen, I've only just got a minute, so I thought I'd stick my head in and say I'll catch up with you guys after the show.
Yes,
have a good one. I'm looking forward to hearing what you've got to say about the cricket, Beachy. We absolutely spanked those Poms, thank God.
Yep.
Second test game. I hear that Davey Warner's in doubt for the second test, so that'll be interesting. And I watched all of it, and I think Marcus Harris might be on a bit of shaky ground. But that's interesting. And I see in England that they had to cancel a game due to COVID. So half the Tottenham team has come down with COVID. I think 13, I don't know if they're players and officials, but just won't go away, that COVID creature, will it?
No.
Just terrible. But anyway, have a good show. I'll give you a call after the show, Vince, because I'm finishing early today.
No worries.
Good luck, and I'll watch it later on.
Terrific, Joe. Thanks for joining us. And
see you guys.
Sorry to see that you've had that mishap, and it's not exactly the best look I've ever seen on you, but anyway.
My days of modelling are over.
As I said, don't stick your nose in where it isn't welcome.
Maybe a rhinoplasty or something might be of the order, Vince.
Exactly.
To try and straighten up that the bridge there of the nose. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, well, poor Joe. He's in a country that wouldn't even know what to do when it comes to public liability insurance. I don't think anyone bothers with it over there.
No.
You know, it's not as litigious as a society as we have over here in Australia and other similar countries like America and England. But anyway, let's get back onto AFL. As I said, the fixture got revealed during the week. First 9 rounds in its entirety. Have you had a chance to have a look at it, gentlemen?
Yes, I have.
What do you think of it, Beachy? What are the highlights for you?
Well, the fact that we're interstate for 2 games in that 9 rounds is actually quite favourable. That said, we do play a grand finalist in round 2 in the Bulldogs quite early.
Yeah.
Although some might say that the reports were saying we were going to get the Demons round 2. Nonetheless, that doesn't matter. We've got the Dogs instead.
Yeah.
That I'm actually not too disappointed with that. But as I've said to you guys and a few other people previously on other channels, results will speak for themselves. So if we can't get, I don't know, maybe 4 wins out of that 9, that might cause a few questions, I reckon.
Well, it's been 10 years since we've won either a round 1 or a round 2 match. You'd like to think that we're going to at least win one of them. And I think the one that's most winnable is the opening game against Richmond, which now will not be the season opener. It will now be the second game of that round after last year's grand finalists, Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs, play each other at the MCG the night before. That's a great way to start the season. I think that should be a tradition. In fact, it used to be the case, and then they went away from it. But what would be wrong with starting every season with the 2 grand finalists? Isn't that a great way to start the year, don't you think, Steve?
It is. Depend on the financials, though, Vince. You know, you're not naive enough to think that tradition's important, are you?
Wow.
It's a fixture.
I suppose if the 2 grand finalists were GWS and Gold Coast,
absolutely.
Not that we're ever going to see that. You'd be saying, well, maybe you could choose a better game to be a season opener. But will it really affect the other matches? Even if you did hypothetically have a game like that happening in Western Sydney or on the Gold Coast, so what? Why can't you still have your Carlton Richmond game on the Thursday night, getting 80,000 people, and Collingwood versus somebody else on a Friday night? What's wrong with that?
No, I agree with you. I believe that they would use the MCG as that showpiece for that first game. The financial,
not necessarily. I don't think it'd bother anybody if it was, for example, let's just say it was Port Adelaide versus Geelong. Now, if that happened as a Port Adelaide home game in Adelaide, because they won last year's grand final. Well, what would be wrong with that? I mean, wouldn't it be fantastic to have a sold-out crowd at the Adelaide Oval, 55,000 people watching the flag be unfurled in front of all of their home crowd? I mean, that to me should be the opening game of the season, where you where you actually unfurl the flag in front of the crowd of the home team being the premiership winner.
I agree with that, but then what happens to the marquee game, which was built up between Carlton and Richmond, and essentially the only, albeit yes, traditional rivals, but going back, dating back to 60s and 70s and 80s, but at the same time, it's a marquee game because it's round one and it's the first game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would just be Carlton playing Richmond.
Yes.
Now it's round one, but not the first game. Doesn't that change it?
Let's just say Richmond. Let's just say in the last. Well, before this year, I should say, the 2021 season, Richmond had played 3 out of the last 4 grand finals and won them all.
Yep.
Now that would mean if this was a policy in place already back in 2017, you would have had a Richmond versus Adelaide game at the start of 2018. You would have had a Richmond versus GWS game at the start of 2021.
Yeah,
sorry, 2020.
Yeah, Richmond Geelong.
And then a Richmond. Who did they beat in 2020? Geelong. So then you'd have a Richmond versus Geelong game at the start of 2021. Okay, so that means Carlton doesn't play Richmond in round one. So?
I'm with you. I'm completely with you. I agree with that. However, both clubs have built this up to be that season opener, and it's probably more to Carlton's advantage of recent, considering our poor performances on field to benefit from that. But you are right. Traditionally, it should be the unfurling of the flag from the previous year and the previous grand finalists. I agree with you.
Beachy, what's your view?
Well, I think I'm in the camp of you guys. I'm disappointed that it's not the round one opener of the season like it has been for the last 5+ years. But at the same time, it's also nice to see 2 champions of the premiers of that last season play off in the opener to start the season. I mean, look at every other league that's done it. I mean, most of the other leagues have done it, so it's only a matter of time before the AFL decide to jump in on it as well. But then again, you could jump in on it for everybody else. Yeah.
Well, at least they're doing it again. I'm encouraged by the fact that they've decided to hold a Melbourne versus Western Bulldogs game as the first game of the season. I think that's tremendous. I see Sandra McDonald has checked in and said hello. Hi, Sandra. Nice to have you as usual. One of our loyal viewers. Feel free to come on to the show, Sandra. Or if you like, send us a comment or two on what you think of the various topics that we're discussing. And by the way, anyone else who wants to do that, do the same thing. Have a look at YouTube or our Facebook page in the blue corner, and put up a comment or a question if you have one. And if you'd like us to address a question, we're more than happy to answer your questions. So, Steve, what are the other?
Yeah. I just wanted to say Melbourne's a sleeping giant of the AFL potentially. Yes. I think that if they can continue to have success, suddenly they'll be commanding primetime fixtures, not your 4:40 Sunday afternoon slots that they were previously hosting.
Yeah, well, I mean, it all comes down to performance, doesn't it? I mean, if you're performing as a team and playing an attractive brand of football, the AFL tends to look after you. We've seen in recent years that they've scheduled games for teams like the Western Bulldogs, who tend to play an attractive, running, exciting brand of football. And now Melbourne looks like being a team in that bracket. Looks like we're also joined here by the one and only Rocco Stagnetti from the Jumper Punch. Rocco, great to see you, mate. You've come in at a perfect time to discuss Carlton.
Hey, guys. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you well. What do you think of the Carlton fixture from my friend? Have you had a look at it?
I spoke to you today. I haven't really looked at it deeply. I just saw that we're playing every team once and then we're playing a couple of other teams twice. Is what happens every year.
Well, do you want to know?
Do you want
to know what the facts are?
The facts are we've got to win 11 or 12 games to make the finals, and it doesn't matter who they put in front of us. We've got to beat them. That's the fact. The facts are it doesn't matter if we play Richmond round 1 or round 5. We have to beat them. So, yeah, look, everyone says the easiest draw of everyone. I don't know. What's easy these days? It's real weird. I don't know. So, yeah, I noticed we know where we're playing in the first 9 games and what times. And I've noticed 4 Sunday games in those first 9 rounds, I think.
Yeah, we're not worthy of any Friday night games yet.
No, we're not going to get Friday night games.
Well, can I tell you the facts, Rocco? We actually play everybody once, of course, but the teams we play twice are the Adelaide Crows, Collingwood, Fremantle, Richmond, all of whom finished 11th or worse in 2021. Ourselves, we only finished 13th ourselves at Carlton. But the only team in the top 10 that we play twice is GWS. That's it. It is the 3rd easiest draw according to the AFL, based on if you add up the position numbers that everyone that you play twice, right? And the lowest score is the hardest, and obviously the highest score is the easiest. Because if you're playing 18th and 17th and 16th twice, well, then obviously you're going to have a higher score. So as it turns out, the Carlton fixture is the 3rd easiest draw behind Adelaide Crows, which is the 2nd easiest. And guess who got the easiest draw? I'll give you a hint. It's not North Melbourne who finished last. It's the Gold Coast Suns. The Gold Coast Suns have got the easiest draw. Surprise, surprise. But the hardest draw of all was not Melbourne. It was, in fact, their grand final opponents, the Western Bulldogs. They are playing more teams up in that top 6 than anyone else. And, but, I mean, essentially the Western Bulldogs, Melbourne, Geelong, Port Adelaide, they're going to have the hardest draws because they finished up in the top 4.
Before we keep going, how you going, Steve, and how you going, Beachy?
Good, Rocco.
Thanks, Rocco.
Hey, by the way, Rocco, before I forget, I just want to say a big hello to one of our viewers, Rob Galicchio. He's not feeling too well at the moment. I think he might have been struck down with COVID, as a matter of fact. So, Rob, if you're out there watching, big hello to you and hope you get better. And also, Rocco, you've got the big Jumper Punch Christmas special coming up in the next few days. And I believe this coming Tuesday night is the first part of it. Is that right? Or you can do it in 2 parts?
Yeah. We got together during the week and we taped it. What we're doing is we're going to do highlights throughout the year and get back and discuss them. And once we did that, we worked out that it's too long for one show, because when you get 3 wogs in the same room, and we had a bottle of wine there, and we had naturally the Midagino. So we went on to we thought. So it's going to be a 2-parter, but the first part is on Tuesday. So everyone get on and get back and live some memories. You're in there too, Vince. We've had some good memories, so it should be good. Tuesday, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock Tuesday night. Don't miss it, everyone. The Jumper Punch Part 1 Christmas special. And I assume Part 2 would be the following Tuesday, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Part 2 will be the following Tuesday, and there's a lot of laughing going on and just a bit of embarrassing moments through the year, as you do when you look back and you look at the statements you made and the things you said, and then you look back and you go, I really didn't know what I was talking about there. So.
Hey, Rocco, can I just give our viewers a bit of a heads up? What was your highlight of 2021 on the Jumper Punch?
Of course, when you came on, Vince, that was my highlight.
Oh, no, that's not what I was aiming for. But that's very nice of you to say.
Tell you the truth, and I'd say it on the show. Like, there's so many. When I look back, there were so many. so many funny parts. But my highlight was, and we showed parts of it on the show, is when we did the interview with Wayne Harms and Alex Mark. Them two with their stories was just. It was just amazing with their stories. It was definitely a thrill. So we show a couple of highlights, especially the fabulous story, and also the story of Alex smashes the car and blames Wayne Harms, and then realises on the show it was actually him that smashed the car. So yeah, that was definitely one of the big highlights of the year. Yeah.
I wonder if the reason why he couldn't remember whether it was him driving or the other one driving was due to something called the blood alcohol reading.
They don't shy away from it. He actually says it used to be a recovery session on a Sunday. They used to play some soccer, go upstairs and have their recovery
Sunday morning. Remember that?
The Sunday morning recovery session, he calls it. So they don't shy away from it. So talking about that, and I don't know, man, those days there, they used to party hard but play harder. I don't know if there's something in that.
Yes, back in those days, Rocco, you get the footy record at Princes Park and you'd flick through it all and they'd have all of the highlights of what's coming up at the Carlton Football Club, and on every single record was, tomorrow morning, Sunday, because every match was played on a Saturday afternoon back in those days. Tomorrow, it's pleasant. They used to call it a pleasant Sunday morning. And I used to think to myself as a 14-year-old, I wonder what these pleasant Sunday mornings are all about.
Vince, that was the highlight. That was the highlight show on ABC on a Sunday morning. That's what they used to call it.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure they used to gather around and watch World of Sport at 11 o'clock too, and watch some of their coaches talk to the commentators and think, what the hell are they talking about? But anyway,
Norton Tatel got a run, didn't it? Norton Tatel got a very good run.
Yes. Well, it looks like you had a ball this year, Rocco. It was a tremendous success, that show, and no doubt you'll be moving on to even bigger and better things for next year, and you got plenty of things in store for the Jumper Punch in 2022.
Yeah, we've got some big plans, and we've got some big plans too, Vince, for our segment. So definitely moving to the next level, hopefully next year. Getting some new equipment, and just having a good time. I think we have a good time. I think it comes out on screen that we're having a good time, and especially after following Carlton, it just gives us a time to relax on a Tuesday night and forget about that we actually follow Carlton. So,
look at the
hopefully it's a bit more positive wins this year.
To say on the life of Brian.
A bit more the bright side of life there. So it should be good.
Now we've got a comment up there from Lana Owens saying, "Okay, guys, what do you think? I firmly believe that the reason we are now getting so much content and the personal touch, so to speak, because of what Vince did shaking up the club." Wow, really? Thanks, Lana. That's giving me a lot of credit for a lot of things. I'm not sure that that's totally true, but look, I think if what happened back in August and September shook up the place a bit and made them really assess what they were doing and how they were doing it, that can only improve things. There have been a lot of visible changes and a lot of essentially a lot of improvements made at the club, and I think a lot of people are hopeful that these changes will result in better performance. But I guess the proof is in the pudding, so to speak, and we'll have to see how they perform next year to see if it's made any difference at all. Steve and I have some views on whether the boardroom changes are essentially going to be changing anything at all. But that's another issue that we'll talk about another time. But essentially, we've got a new president, a new CEO, and a new senior coach, and a whole range of assistant coaches. You can't get much more of a shake-up than that. Whether that would have happened if it wasn't for our intervention back in August or September is debatable. I tend to think it probably wouldn't have happened quite that much. But I do think some change was in the wind anyhow. We just made sure it happened and happened in a meaningful way, I guess. What do you think, Steve? Would you agree with those thoughts, or have you got some other sentiments?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Vince. I don't think it's necessarily about you making the changes. It was more about pressure coming on them externally. Essentially, the club hasn't had accountability before.
Yeah.
They've just been able to go from season to season and make some form of excuse or set a new expectation of where the club is supposed to be going. What is worrying, though, is still the media beat up about how, the club's going to perform every year. We seem to see this every year of this huge expectation set rather than just focusing on the process. It's just this boom or bust sort of bubble every year.
Bring in a new Messiah and hope for the best. And if that Messiah doesn't work out, you sack them and bring on another Messiah.
and that's what I'm trying to say. I think that whole year-to-year mindset is the problem. It's it's a tease being a Carlton supporter, isn't it? It's let's try and talk about this year and the reasons why we'll be better. We'll show some signs. Then we won't deliver. The next year we'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
Show some signs, pump it up. I think we as supporters we don't need to buy that. We just need to say, look, we want sustainable processes that we can see are doing well. I think we don't need to even buy into that finals mindset of we must make finals. It's more about, like, are we doing everything that we see is right, and are we winning? Are we competitive in the games that we should be? Are we not losing to teams below us and being, non-competitive? That's the mindset I think that we need to be sold to. But of course, that doesn't sell memberships at the start of a season, does it? What sells memberships at the start of the season is hype. But I think as supporters,
and hope.
and look, we're all emotional, but I think as supporters, we need to get away from that as much as we possibly can. Save that for during the game, but really calmly look at it and say, look, making finals is not the be-all and end-all for this year. If the following year, we go back to this cycle that we're always in. Anyway, that's my view.
What about you, Rocco? You got some pretty good views on this sort of thing. What do you think of the way Carlton goes about its business in selling hope and selling hype?
I think, first of all, all clubs do it. It's not just Carlton. We all do it because it's a business. And unfortunately, it is a business. So all clubs do it. We do it a bit better than everyone else because we've got nothing to hang our hats on, So we'll try to sell that hope every year. I think a bit of false hope too, like Steve was saying. We've got to be worried about the future and sustainable success. Is that going to happen? I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. Look, the changes are good that's happened, I think. I needed the changes. Are they the right people? We won't know. We won't know until later on, But the changes are there. As far as, are we going to be successful or we have a successful year next year? I can't. When I look at that, I look at the team, the way we played this year, and then I look what we added to it and what we lost, and then I say to myself, how much better are we? I don't think we're that much better. We've added a couple of players and that's it. Are we that much better? I mean, we need these young players to really improve at 20, 30%. Are they capable of doing that? And I don't think most of them are. So as far as selling hope and how we're going to next year, I'm going to wait and see. I really.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right in one thing. If we think that just bringing in new players like, Adam Chera and George Hewitt and Lewis Young are going to make all the difference, we're kidding ourselves. We've got to get at least 20% improvement in a lot of other players that have been there for a while. And especially some of these recruits that we've had, big high-price recruits over recent years. We need to see a lot more out of McGovern and Jack Martin. And, Zach Williams had a pretty disappointing start to his career at Carlton last year, if you ask me. these guys are on massive
They
money,
all have.
7, 8, 900,000 a year type players, and we need to see a lot more out of them, and we need to see improvement out of a lot of the other boys that have been with us for a while now.
And the other thing is, like, all of them can play football. Don't get me wrong, they can all play. We've got some fairly good players there. Zach Williams, Martin, they're potentially A grade at the moment. They're maybe a B, maybe a C player. But these players there, how are we going to bring the best out of them, right? And it's about the people we put around them now. We put all these new coaches. Yep.
In our system, though, Rocco, they become selfish and cheat. I'm being completely candid, right? They become selfish and cheat, don't play a team brand, don't play a selfless brand of football, become all about them. Almost the fact that they've got that big money tag means that the conditioning of a lot of them has been nothing short of a disgrace, considering the money that they're on. The fact that they've had to be questioned on their conditioning. Now, then we have to ask the question, well, when you recruited these players, these were not sight unseen. They've got exposed form in other clubs. McGovern had exposed form. Williams had exposed form. Martin had exposed form.
We took a gamble. That's what we did. We took a big gamble.
Yeah, thinking that we had something special in the water at Princes Park that we could just turn them in, look at that potential. Jack Martin as a 15-year-old was sat out of the draft, if you remember. He was like the gun, talent-wise, but never went on with it. And we thought, Gold Coast just couldn't get the best out of him. Well, guess what? Probably, if you look at it now, take your Carlton goggles off for a moment, they're probably right. They were probably, the only problem is they got nothing for him. But other than that, they were right. Zach Williams, we sort of think, he's a midfielder. We'll turn him into. We can see this, and we want him to fit his square peg into this round hole. We reckon we can make that happen. Well, guess what? He probably hasn't done that. His conditioning has been appalling as well, right? McGovern, a third or fourth forward at the Crows. Third or fourth banana, wanted more money. Obviously, Crows had their issues with the off-season camps and so forth, and a lot of players left during that period of time. Again, we offered him ridiculous money to come to us. Hasn't shown it. Now he's going to be the next Liam Jones all of a sudden because he can't play in his original position. I mean, I'm not being negative. I'm just being honest, right? Now, these are 4 players we've just mentioned now. Are we going to turn all of them around? I don't know.
Why haven't they? My question is, like, you're totally right, Steve. I agree with you 100%. We've got these players on big money, especially someone like Williams. Williams is a back pocket at best. What was that?
We paid overs on market value.
We paid for Williams as a gun midfielder before he became a gun midfielder, and he still isn't.
Well, that was just wrong. That was a wrong move. Yeah, I agree. All those moves were wrong. Even getting someone like McGovern was a mistake. That was just a last-minute ditch effort to get some sort of name out there, and he hasn't shown anything. And you're right. All these 4 players that you mentioned, are they all going to improve this year? Why haven't they? My thing was, who is going to turn these players around? Now, it's well enough that we've got these players here that are potentially, and is a big word, but can that coaching panel now get these players to play at their best and play as a team? And I'm not sure about that at the moment. I'm not sure about
Well, some of them haven't played it. Yeah. Some of them haven't played at their best for 3 years. Yeah.
Exactly. And then next year we expect them to be premiership, with Voss, I think I state that he is one of the best, along with Hodge, one of the 2 best I've ever seen at any club, right? But can he transfer that over to coaching, transfer that over to the players and make them do what he used to do? we don't know. We don't know if that's going to happen next year. Until I see it, I'm going to hold my cards to my chest, you know.
Well, this is the thing. There's a lot of hype around Voss. We all know that his first stint as a coach at Brisbane was basically immediately after retiring as a player. So, you know, he didn't do an apprenticeship anywhere. Since being sacked at Brisbane, he's gone on to have, I think, an eight-year assistant coaching career at one club, at Port Adelaide. So all he knows is Port Adelaide and Ken Hinkley and Ken Hinkley's other assistants. What he's learnt there, what difference that's going to make now that he's got a second opportunity at senior coaching level remains to be seen. I think he'll probably take some parts of what he's learnt there and try and instill that into the Carlton group. In other words, what I expect to see more of is that running and gunning type of style of play, that play on and hand pass to each other a lot more. Carlton's essentially been a kicking team for many years, even under Bolton, even under Teague. We've always been a kicking team, even Malthouse. So really, it's been a long time since we've had a more fluent running style of play, probably since the Brett Ratton days. So if he can instill that into them and bring that to our game plan, I think it'll probably improve our prospects. But it remains to be seen whether what Rocco said is true. It remains to be seen whether he can actually instill a mindset into these players and get them to play as a team, as a united group of players that all play for each other in a similar fashion to what we've seen with Melbourne this year.
But Vince, there's two styles here. Kick it on Harry's head, and we'll rely on Harry. And as long as Harry can play every week, he'll kick 5 goals and we might win. Or the running game where you bring the midfielders in, but then hoping that they can kick their line share of the goals, because Harry might then not get as many goals, which is fine, and have more of a team goal kicking. I mean, if Harry didn't play well, we couldn't win this year. That was pretty much we needed him every time, and how good a team when he was firing. I mean, he's a great footballer. I love watching him.
I'm sure we all want Vossi to succeed. You know, we all are sick and tired of being a mediocre club with a mediocre team that finishes in a mediocre position on the ladder every year. We all want to see success. No one more than me wants to see Carlton successful. And just going back to the point you made earlier about, I think Lana made earlier about our intervention, it wasn't to create trouble. It wasn't to destabilise the place. It wasn't to do anything. It was to bring about meaningful change and to hold the club accountable for basically a decade of non-performance where they weren't holding themselves to account. Now, they've made a lot of other people accountable. A lot of them have lost their jobs. Now we've got a whole heap of new people in those jobs. Whether that's going to make any difference or not remains to be seen. We keep our fingers crossed.
And you know,
all right, boys.
I'm going to, now that it's happened, I'm backing them 100%. I'm behind Voss.
Absolutely.
I'm behind them all now. And I'm ready to rock and roll, man. I'm ready to, take on the world. I want to walk around with my chest pumped out the way I used to in the 80s.
We all want that.
I'm ready to back them now, and I've got faith in them. So, am I just drinking Kool-Aid? Maybe. But I'm ready. I'm ready to rock and roll this year.
We're all backing it.
What about you, Beachy?
We're all backing it. Simple as that. We want success for this club. We want to see it. As someone that's probably the youngest in this four, I'm the least experienced person in that category. So let's see what happens next.
Yeah. I think it's good to drink a little bit of Kool-Aid as long as you get your mixture with the water right. If you get too much Kool-Aid, a bit like cordial, it gets too sweet, right? Sends you troppo. But if you have just that little bit of Kool-Aid, I mean, that's okay as long as you get enough water with it as well with the soda stream.
It's one thing to be, barracking for them and cheering for them and hopeful of success, but it's another to be looking at everything with blue-coloured glasses. Can I put it that way?
Now, Vince,
Rocco, yes, mate.
I was just going to let's talk some Ashes before I go.
Yes, I was just going to say that's exactly what I was about to do.
I've still got to drive trains in about 20
minutes.
I know.
So. We've got to get you off soon, but let's talk very briefly about the Ashes Test. Of course, you're a cricket nut, going back many, many years.
I love it.
And we saw the Aussies do what they usually do at the Gabba, and that is win. And they won very convincingly.
Yeah,
Hardly surprising, really, was it?
No, it wasn't surprising. And we discussed it last week. I couldn't see England making any sort of score, and it's exactly what happened. If it wasn't for Root, man, I'm telling you, if you look at averages, I think he's averaging like 60 for the year, and the rest of the team are averaging about 20. So they're going nowhere. They're never going to make enough. And then the only chance they had was their bowling lineup, and they left best bowlers out for some reason. They're saving them for the Adelaide, which is ridiculous. But first ball of the Test, Stark comes in swinger, around the legs. That teaches you, because you're a bunch of bloody pretenders. You come down here thinking you're going to beat us, and that first ball, I went, that's it, Ashes is over. Loving it.
Yeah,
so, what a first ball.
This is a sign. This is a sign that they've got their work cut out, England. First ball is a wicket.
That was
how demoralising would that have been back in the change rooms for the rest of the team to see first ball a wicket?
Almost,
and it was around the legs, I think.
What was that, Beachy?
Almost as demoralising as the Harmison wide.
The Harmison wide, yes, the Harmison wide. That's right. Yeah.
Well, Rocco,
and then after that, 147 first innings. That was it. It was game over. And
look, Root and Milan had a pretty good. Root and Milan had a pretty good partnership in the second innings, but as soon as they went out on that fourth day, you just knew that it was game over. And the Aussies made 425. Fantastic innings by Travis Head to make over 150, and of course Labuschagne made 7 in the 70s, and Warner was in the 90s and went out for, I think, 94. Pat Cummins got 5 wickets in that first innings that England went out for only 147. So that was a fantastic start to his Test captaincy.
Yeah, well, just talk about Pat Cummins. So, look, I'm not a big advocate of him being captain. I still think that Steve Waugh should be captain. But anyway, they made him captain. I'll back him.
Steve Waugh or Steve Smith?
Sorry. Smith. I wouldn't mind Steve Waugh to come back. Yeah, Steve Smith. You're absolutely right. But one of the good decisions
the other week about who was going to be captain.
Yeah. One of the decisions he made was in that third day when what's his name? Hazelwood looked a little bit. They reckon he had like a side strain, and he only bowled 8 overs, and he didn't bowl him for the whole day. For the rest of the day, and what saved him for the next day. Now, if that's his decision, that just showed some good leadership there. So I was happy about that with Cummins, because they're his decisions, which bowlers come on, which come off. I think it's a hard position for him to be, to even work out when he has to come on. That's so tough. Does he hold himself back? I'm telling you, it's a tough position. A tough position to be a fast bowler, but I thought that day he held his nerve, didn't play, just kept playing line, kept bowling. Line bowled well in that third day, just was a bit unlucky, but just kept persisting. So I think I have to give a thumbs up to Cummins for his first hit out as captain.
Rocco, he has to rely on others helping him though, doesn't he? He can't do all that on his own. He's got to get He's got to get his vice captain and others. Otherwise, he just subconsciously is going to make some wrong decisions as a fast bowler.
100%. 100%. And as I said, it would be hard to be the bowler and be captain. So, and your number one bowler also, not like your third or fourth bowler. This is your number one bowler, and he's deciding who comes on. But you're right, Smith would be a massive help. I would say that Steve Smith would be making helping him make most of those decisions anyway. Yeah, and Warner apparently a big help also. So yeah, he'd have a lot of look in any team. It's not just one leader. There has to be a whole bunch of leaders, and I think Cummings is just the name on top of the list. But at the end of the day, Australia have always had a great bunch of leaders in their cricket team.
Yeah. A little bit like the Carlton 1995 Premiership team. They had that many leaders within the team. They had a group 100%. Of 6 there at the back in the back line that had leadership all over just about all of them. You know, Silvani, Sexton, Peter Dean, Milhana, you name it. They were all leaders of one type or another.
Vince, remember we lost to St Kilda and Sydney in consecutive weeks at VFL Park, or Waverley as it was known.
That paid for the end of season trip, those two.
Yeah. That's right. That's
right. Anyway, Rocco, just quickly before we let you go, I'm just going to get your comment on the English attack, because if anything that they do have going for them, I believe it's their pace bowling unit, and that's probably only going to be added to in the second test. The talk is that they will bring in what's his name?
Anderson and Broad.
Yeah, Anderson and Broad. And so, I was quite impressed with Ollie Robinson and Mark Wood. Probably more so than Wokes and Stokes. But I think
Wokes
Ben Stokes is still injured to some extent. But certainly Robinson and Wood, I thought, really battled on manfully for England.
Yeah, I think they'll bring in. They're going to bring in Anderson and Broad. I mean, Anderson, they reckon he was right to go, and I saw him, and they reckon he was bowling in the nets for an hour at a time each day. So it's not like he wasn't ready to go. I thought it was a strange decision not to blame. But anyway, they'll bring him back for Adelaide.
They might have erred on the side of caution. They might have erred on the side of caution because, I mean, it is a 5-test series, and if he had a bit of a niggle or there was a risk that he might have, further damaged his body, well, then they probably thought best to rest him for this first test and see if these younger guys like
play him in the first
and Robinson can do the job.
First and then rest him. But I think they wanted the same for the Adelaide because he killed us last time at Adelaide. So bring him in, definitely. The swinging pink ball. I love the late test. I love the day-nighters. I think it's one of the best tests of the whole series, I think, the Adelaide test.
Just a couple of Australians that I'd like your comments on. First of all, I thought it was a great test debut by Alex Carey. Not so much with the bat. He made 12 and he actually got out for 9 in the second innings. They put him up to open the innings. But more so with the gloves. In fact, I believe he equalled the record for most dismissals as a wicket keeper in his first test for any country. And I think that the record is 8, and it's only ever been achieved by 2 other people.
Yep. Spot on.
I thought that was
what a debut. What was impressive about him?
Behind the stumps. He looked really capable. He never looked nervous. He never had any nervous moments or drop catches. He actually performed like he belonged in that team as the wicketkeeper.
Yep, he was beautiful. And what impressed me was only in the second innings he put his hand up to open up batting. Yeah. Even though it was only 20 runs, but if that's true, that shows leadership. Yeah, no, that's right. They're supposed to nothing that one there, man. Because if you go out and if you make 10, it's nothing. But he put his hand up, and that shows great leadership. So what a great debut for sure.
And the other one who's probably breathing a sigh of relief that he didn't go out in that short second innings where they only had to make 20 runs to win. Marcus Harris ended up being not out on 9. He was probably grateful that he didn't get out and actually scored the winning runs. But he's going to have to perform in Adelaide, or else the talk is that his position might be a little bit precarious at the moment.
It has to be, doesn't it? I mean, if he doesn't perform, I mean, he only averages 20 as an opening batsman. I mean, if he doesn't perform in Adelaide, I think we have to look elsewhere.
Have you got any ideas on who you'd bring in if he happens to fail again in Adelaide?
No. I haven't thought that far ahead. No. I'm just here to like bag people and kick them off the team. I'm not I'm not a team collector.
I love it. I love it. Well,
Yeah, that's it.
I'm
not sure. There's a few out. So I'm not sure.
Beachy's a cricket nut, so we'll get his thoughts very soon. But I know you have to get going. So, mate, thanks again for your time tonight. Thanks for coming on, talking all things Carlton and also a bit of Test cricket. It's great to have you, mate. And again, let's make sure that we all tune in on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock on YouTube.
That's it.
For the Jumper Punch. Don't forget, put it in your diary now. Set a calendar reminder. It's going to be a great show, the Christmas special, starring the one and only Rocco Stagnetti and his two cohorts, the Sebastiani cousins, Paolo and Marco. And Mars, we call him Marcelo, don't we?
Mars,
we call him Mars. So
get yourself a red wine. That's it. Get yourself a red wine, sit back, enjoy.
Yes, I'm sure, and a little antipasto. Make sure you have one of those in front of you as well with your red wine.
No, we had one of them too. So we're a bit bigger by the end of the show. Let me tell you that.
Good on you, Rocco. Thanks again, mate.
All right, thanks, guys. Really enjoyed this. We'll speak soon.
All the best.
Cheers, Rocco.
Cheers.
Bye.
The great Rocco from the Jumper Punch, always entertaining and always, pretty forthright in his views and doesn't hold back, says what he thinks, and that's what we love about him. Beachy, we'll just get your thoughts quickly on the Ashes Test. Anything you'd like to add to what's already been discussed? It was a pretty comprehensive victory, wasn't it?
Look, it was a pretty comprehensive victory. I mean, Rocco said it perfectly. After the first ball of the first over of the first Test at Fortress Gabba, as some might call it, it was pretty much England on the back foot because Stark's just gone to Burns, bang, get back in the pavilion, son, you're on your way back. Obviously not your leg and middle stumps out of the ground, not quite, but you get the idea. And we now go to Adelaide where there's a pink ball probably likely to be hooping around a fair bit in the night atmosphere at Adelaide.
Yeah. Yeah, the pink ball test. What do you think, Steve? Do you like the whole day-night pink ball test thing?
I think for Adelaide, where the pitch has traditionally been a road, it's essentially the Monash Freeway. Yeah, it's a Monash Freeway or maybe not now with the road works.
Yeah,
but
the ball
you know
just
what
doesn't move. Yeah. The ball just doesn't move there, does it?
So you get a draw every time. The amount of draws that have been played.
First innings 560 for 4 wickets, and second
declared.
innings 702 runs. And, it's just too many runs and no wickets.
So I think to spice it up a bit, it's certainly given results. The new stadium upgrades over the last few years as well obviously add to it. It was more of a day, it was more of a day venue, although they've still got the Moreton Bay fig at the scoreboard end and all the rest of it, there. But you've got that new Southern stand now. So, look, I think it's okay. It suits Adelaide. Would you do it everywhere? Probably not. It's nice to, if you're busy during the day, it's nice to have that last session to watch. And knowing that the ball will move off the seam a bit with that moisture. And also batting, where you bat and winning the toss is a big one as well in these things.
I tend to agree with you, and maybe we should just leave it at the one test. But I wonder whether they could do something like that, especially, I guess, in light of the Jane McGrath day, that they have the pink stumps and the pink ball and the pink everything else. Maybe the Sydney test could be improved a bit by doing something similar. I mean, day-night games have been a tradition at Sydney, especially in the one-day game, since the inception of the one-day game. Yeah. But I just wonder whether even as a test match it could be improved by doing something similar, having a day-night set up in Sydney, especially it's traditionally that first test of the new year. It's always pretty hot. There's not much in the wicket for the bowlers. It tends to be a spinner's paradise. Yeah. Yeah. I just wonder again whether the Sydney test could be improved by having something similar to Adelaide. And also, again, I think the crowds would be improved. The atmosphere would be fantastic at the SCG. just like it has been over the years with the day-night games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if you were gonna move it, if it was going to be played anywhere, it'd be probably Sydney that would be most suited. Albeit, look, I'm a traditionalist. I'm biased. I want to go to all-day cricket in Melbourne. I don't want to go to the evening. But I mean, that's where I'm talking through my wallet, so to speak.
But imagine if you had a day test in Brisbane, followed by the Boxing Day, followed by the day-night test in Adelaide as the second one. Then the third one's back to day again with Melbourne, the Boxing Day test.
Yep.
And then the day-nighter again. So, in other words, you're having the day-nighter thing on the second and the fourth. And the first, third and fifth stay as day games.
And we in Australia, without prejudice, don't doctor wickets allegedly like some of the other countries do when you play there. So we generally, Brisbane will have that bit of green, that bit of green top there. Sydney will spin and it'll dust up later in the test. Melbourne, Melbourne's been...
The ball keeps low at Melbourne, usually.
It doesn't carry to the keeper, right? But although it's been better over the last 2 years.
It's been a lot better,
couldn't have got any worse. But Perth, we won't talk about Perth, but...
we will talk about Perth in a minute.
Yeah, we will. But traditionally, you'd lose the keys, but of course now it's at the new Perth Stadium, so a bit different there. So it's we have those. We've got such a different climate and such different pitches in each city. We're lucky. We don't need to really do anything. It's pretty straightforward to the opposition team.
Well, I was just going to say, isn't it? Well, in my view, a terrible thing for Perth and for Western Australians to have missed out on a test purely because of the stubbornness of their ridiculous government over there in WA. For what reasons they've imposed all these ridiculous restrictions, which have essentially seen them lose the test. I hope they remember that at the ballot box next time they have an opportunity, but they probably forget about it by the time they do that. That idiot only got re-elected this time last year. Or was it earlier this year? I think it might have been March this year. Anyway, but of course he's keeping you all safe, everyone. But of course now we've seen the beneficiary of that down in Tasmania. Isn't it great news for Tassie that Hobart's picked up the 5th test? I think that's a tremendous achievement.
My faith in humanity has been restored with Hobart winning that. And I'm a Melburnian, so are you, Vince.
Yep.
But definitely the corporate dollar hasn't won out there. It's actually gone to the cricketing public. I mean, what a great cricketing state. Let's hope that they can really pack. I'm sure they will pack out.
Blundstone Arena.
Yeah, absolutely. And
what we traditionally know as Bellerive Oval. If you've ever been to, have you ever been to Bellerive Oval?
Yeah,
I have.
What about you, Beachy?
Yep.
Isn't it a magnificent place? The views over the Derwent River, just that part of Tasmania, just magnificent. If anyone hasn't been to Tassie yet, get down there as soon as you can and check out Hobart and pay a visit to the Bellerive Oval on the eastern shore. It's just magnificent. And I just, as you say, I hope that they can pack out the place and really fill up the stadium on each of the 5 days, preferably. I mean, this is a wonderful opportunity for Tasmanians to get right behind it and maybe even make a case to have a test every year. Why not?
Well, I just want to point out too, Vince, that was actually the first Carlton interstate game I did. So when Carlton played North Melbourne down in Hobart, that was the first one I did.
We got smashed.
That was a bad result there.
I remember we lost by about 88 points that night.
Yeah, that's
I was there too, Beachy. It was very, very cold, wet and miserable.
Wet and miserable, yes.
I think
like so many interstate games we've been to over the last 25 years. Anyway, go on.
I think we won the toss and kicked with the wind and got outscored or something like that from memory. But anyway,
something like that.
Anyway, I agree.
Well, it's good. It's good luck to Tassie. I hope that the 5th test is a great. Wouldn't it be great if there was actually, a result still to be achieved in the series? Going into the 5th test, I think that would be great if England can fight back and somehow pull off a victory here or there. and be competitive for the remaining tests. And geez, wouldn't it be great for the Hobart test to be the decider if they were 2-2 or 1-1 with 2 draws or something?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I should just point this out too. They're going to make the Hobart test a day-night test as well. So that
is that right?
That might be interesting because Bellary Oval, for those that don't know, is more of an open ground. So you're more likely to see a bit of swing and dew within the air, and that might actually do a bit of damage to the ball and cause a few more events to occur.
Right. It's all looking good, all looking up. All right, boys, let's move right along. We've got plenty more to talk about. We're still on cricket, but moving on from the Ashes between Australia and England. And, of course, the second test starts pretty much straight away, doesn't it, this week?
Thursday.
On Thursday. So, in Adelaide. So, that'll be interesting to see the changes to each team. It'll be interesting to see if Warner actually plays. David Warner's a bit of a question mark, apparently, due to an injury he sustained during the first test. So it will be interesting to see if he is replaced, who replaces him at the top of the order, whether they put Alex Carey up there or whether they get another opener. That will be interesting. We've also had some BBL, Beachy, and we've seen a few matches already take place, and we've actually got one already being played tonight, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just watching it in the background while we're doing this show.
Sydney Thunder have scored 151 after their 20 overs, I believe, tonight.
That is correct. The Melbourne Stars have just started their reply in chasing of 152. They are
that's a pretty even. You'd say that's a real 50-50 job, isn't it? 150 runs is about that sort of just enough to be competitive, but not necessarily enough to win the game. So Melbourne Stars, if they're good enough, will overhaul it. But if they lose too many wickets, they could fall short.
This is going to depend. At the moment, they're currently none for 10, although a leg bye has just been scored. That makes it none for 11, with Stoinis on 10 off 6, and Joe Clark, the English import, that's the wicketkeeper for the Melbourne Stars at the moment, get to get off the mark with 2 balls faced.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go. All right. Well, that's interesting. We've already seen the Sydney Sixers play 3 matches, and they've won 2 of them. They're at the top of the ladder, along with the Perth Scorchers, who have won both of their only 2 games. Adelaide Strikers have also played 3, but they've only won 1 and lost 2. And then most of the other teams have only had the 2 matches and won 1 and lost 1. So I guess the ladder doesn't mean much yet, but Brisbane Heat are about the only team that are dragging their feet. They've only played the 2 matches but lost them both. Every other team's had at least 1 win.
The run rate after that initial thrashing, though, the Melbourne Stars had the run rate will certainly hurt them if they can't do the same the other way.
They were fortunate. They were fortunate to win the other night. It was a gutsy win that they had. I'm trying to remember who they beat the other night, it was against. I think it was against Sydney Thunder again. That's right. This is the return match, isn't it, tonight? So it was against Sydney Thunder, and it looked like for all money that Sydney Thunder were going to overhaul the total. But young Adam Zampa, who's a real, I guess, potential Shane Warne, the leggy, he bowled a fantastic final over and kept the Sydney Thunder to very few runs in that last over and got a few wickets and essentially won the game off his own bowling arm there in that last over. And
it's amazing.
Sydney Thunder fell 4 runs short in the end.
It's amazing how they can bring spinners on tactically in this shorter form of the game. And it's a real tactical, play on how they use the slow bowlers, isn't it? Yeah. It's amazing. You'd think, they'll get carted all over the park, but quite the opposite can often happen.
The other thing too, Steve, is I noticed the Sydney Sixers, the team that's at the top of the ladder, after 2 comprehensive victories in their first 2 matches. And that included one very comprehensive victory over the Hobart Hurricanes. They played the Hurricanes again a few days later over in Sydney on their home ground and actually lost really badly. The Hobart Hurricanes scored 2 for 213 off their 20 overs. I think Matthew Wade went ballistic and scored, I think, 93 in very, very short time. He's the real key to the Hobart Hurricanes team. I mean, 93 off 46 balls. That's just over 2 runs per ball. And Darcy Short also found some form for a change. 73 not out after only 51 deliveries. Caleb Jewell, 42 runs off only 23 deliveries. I mean, that's just an absolute wipeout of an innings. I don't think too many other sides would have caught 213 runs, do you?
No.
The Sixers ended up scoring 151 off only 18 overs. I think there was a bit of an interruption to that second innings, but on the Duckworth-Lewis method, the Hurricanes won.
Problem is when you have to chase that sort of a total, if you don't get off to a good start, you end up just throwing the bat at the ball, don't you? And
you lose even more wickets.
Yeah.
Mind you, they only lost 4 wickets in their chase, but 4 for 151 after 18 overs wasn't enough to overhaul 2 for 213 after 20. So anyway, so it just goes to show you that the results can turn around very quickly in a matter of days. All righty, that's enough of the BBL. That's certainly great to have a cricket game on every day, essentially. There's not too many days where we don't get a game, is there, Beachy?
I'm just going to double check the fixture because I think it seems to be that there's going to be some cricket nearly every night for the next little while.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, we've got the Melbourne Stars and Sydney Thunder tonight. Then we've got Brisbane Heat and the Melbourne Renegades tomorrow. Hobart Hurricanes versus Perth Scorchers the day after. The day after, Melbourne Stars versus Sydney Sixers. And then I think there's a 4-day break until the 19th. And then from the 19th, again, it's pretty much every day up until Christmas. Christmas Day is the only day that there won't be a game. And then back to Boxing Day, there'll be 2 matches, in fact, on Boxing Day. And then the 27th, there'll be 2 matches. 28th, 29th, 2 matches. So we're going to be absolutely spoilt for cricket right through that period. Not only will there be a test match going on in Adelaide and another one in Melbourne between Boxing Day and New Year, there'll be plenty of Big Bash League to watch as well.
Exactly, and that's going to keep cricket nuffies like me occupied for pretty much the rest of the year, I think, and the start of the New Year. So that'll be fantastic.
All righty. Now, moving right along. Just quickly check, Beachy, have we heard from Luke yet?
Well, I did see him in the waiting room, but he had his mic muted and he didn't have his camera on. So I think he might be having some technical issues at the moment. Okay. Oh, here we go. I've just got him. Yep, here he is now.
And we've got him?
I was
keen to talk to him about...
what do they call in harness terms? A gear adjustment. Is that right?
There he is. We've got young Luke Humphreys all the way back from Stawell, Victoria. G'day, Luke. How you going?
How you going, guys?
Terrific to have you join us again this
now,
week.
I'm just hoping you can hear. I'm just hoping you can hear me because it keeps on cutting out, and I can't hear a word you're saying.
Really? Well, I hope the viewers can hear everything we're saying. Otherwise, there's not much of a show. Well, I think we had a. Did I see a comment there from Rob Galicchio saying that he was enjoying the show?
Yeah, cheerio, Rob.
So I think hopefully it's coming through. Luke,
I can't make out a word you're saying. I might have to change rooms. Hang on, I'll go out and come back in again.
You sure? Okay. Fair enough.
The beauty of live streaming, isn't it?
These are the issues of technology, and we're doing a live show. It's not pre-recorded, everyone. So so whatever's happening, that's what you're seeing. But before Luke comes back on, of course, last night we saw the running of the Inter-Dominion finals in the harness racing world, and these are basically the two biggest races in terms of prestige. Unfortunately, not in terms of prize money anymore, but certainly in terms of prestige, they are still considered the two biggest races in harness racing, and that is the Inter-Dominion Pacing Grand Final and the Inter-Dominion Trotting Grand Final. And they were both held at the Menangle track in Western Sydney last night. And, there was some controversy last night, and I wanted to get Luke's views on all of that. There was some fantastic racing going on. The Trotters final was won by a Victorian horse, which I was pretty happy to see, namely Maori Law. And that was driven by Greg Sugars, the Candyman, as we refer to him as. And Maori Law actually started favourite at $3.60 and $1.80 from gate 6. And he took the lead soon after the start from Majestic Man, the New Zealander, which took the lead immediately from the start from Just Believe, number 1. And in fact, that's the order that they finished in. So Just Believe started from the pole position. Majestic Man is a noted horse with gate speed, so it pretty soon took the lead from Just Believe, who was always going to take the sit, really. And then Maori Law took the lead soon after from Majestic Man. That was a move that I didn't see coming, but obviously the connections of Majestic Man were happy for Maori Law to take the lead and for them to take the sit. But in essence, those three were the top 3 place getters, and Tough Monarch was the only horse that finished 4th to make ground from the back of the field. It was a real sign early on that the place to be was on the rails, or on the pegs, if you like. Over the 3,009-metre trip, which is fairly long in harness racing terms, being on the inside was a distinct advantage. Have we got you there, Luke? Have we got Luke there? I'm not sure. I thought I saw his face just pop up for a second there.
Yeah, and then he turned his camera off. So
And then he turned his camera off. You need to turn your camera on, Luke, if you can hear us. And your microphone.
His mic's on.
Anyway, I'm sure he'll keep trying to get in. But,
cool.
Yeah, so they were the first 4 in the Trotting Grand Final. I thought it was a great win by Maori Law, and it was Greg Sugar's first victory in an Inter-Dominion final of either trotting or pacing. So it was a great victory for him, and I'm sure he'll win a lot more as a driver. He's one of Victoria's top drivers, probably in the top 3, along with Chris Alford, who's the number 1 driver in Victoria and has been for a long time. And I guess Greg always looked up to the great Gavin Lang as his mentor, and he in fact drives a lot like Gavin used to drive. And of course, sadly, Gavin lost his life just over 18 months ago due to a blood cancer that developed about 2 years ago now, that struck him down, and unfortunately didn't last much more than about 6 months. Luke's just sent me a message, mate. I'm sorry, I can't come on. Something to do with, I don't know what he's saying here. I'm getting on both my phone and computer. So
I can hear you now.
Oh, now we've got you.
Okay.
We've got you.
Broadcast.
Now you drop out again.
All right, Luke, while we've got you, let's make the most of it before you drop out. I was just describing the Trotting Grand Final.
You're dropping out
before
again.
we get into
You're already
the
dropping
Pacing
out.
Grand Final. What's that?
Dropping out again.
You're already dropping out.
How about
You're already dropping out, mate.
How about you give us your rundown? All yours.
You're already dropping out, mate. I can't hear.
You can't hear me?
I can't hear you, mate. No.
Okay.
I can now.
You can.
Now I've got you.
All
I've
yours.
got you now.
Why don't
Okay.
you give us a quick description of what happened last night? Go.
Before I cut out. Yeah, well,
Go.
the protest was upheld, and it was the right decision. I don't know what you've said, Vince. For some reason, technical issues galore here. I don't know if it's bloody Telstra or what's going on.
Luke, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
It's a
start
miracle.
with the trotting. Start with the trotting grand final, and then go to the pacing grand final. And I'll shut up, and we can all just listen to you. Give us a rundown for 5 minutes. Go.
Okay. And hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you.
The trotting grand final, first of all. Well, I can hear you. It's a miracle. First of all, good evening, everyone. At last. Yeah, Maori
You look
Law
very
was able to
relaxed
win
there
the
on the
Trotters
couch,
grand
Chris,
final.
by the way.
I don't feel relaxed. I'm bloody stressed out. Mary Law was able to win the Trotters grand final
Yes.
for Greg Sugars and the Brosnans. Of course, in harness racing, there's 2 different gates. And, of course, the Trotters grand final, as you probably remember, Vince disappeared there for a little while. But, of course,
It did.
It was revived. And as it's been brought back. Again, both prize monies for the final should be a lot higher, in my opinion, if it's for supposedly the pinnacle of trotting or harness racing, but so be it. But Maori Law was able to win and beat the New Zealand horse Majestic Man. And as you predicted, Vince, if you weren't against the inside of the race course or the pegs, you may as well have torn your ticket up, as I found out for the horse that I backed before the series, the drops.
Yes, it was a brave run by the Penny Drops, the other Victorian with a big chance in the race, but racing in what we call the death position outside the leader with no cover ended up being his downfall, I think.
Well, when you look at his run, it probably wasn't that bad. When you look at
no, it was a pretty brave run, I thought. Finished 6th, but not far behind them. And I thought it was a fantastic effort by the Penny Drops.
Yeah, well, when you consider the bias of being on the peg line or against the inside of the racetrack, it probably wasn't a bad run. Who else was up there? Tough Monarch was the first horse home that actually wasn't against the inside. It was a pretty big run. Just Believe had the run of the race, and that's probably why he ran 3rd from Barrier 1. And Illawong Stardust, which you predicted for B. Gaff, 77 years of age.
How's this, Steve? Brian Gath at 77 years of age, who won an Inter-Dominion final in 1978, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Luke?
Mark Avina.
On Mark Avina.
At Mooney
Here
Valley.
he is, some 43 years later, driving a horse in the Inter-Dominion Trotting Grand Final. And I actually said to Luke before the race, I said, this horse is drawn the inside of the second row. He'll get a really soft, cushy run on the rails. And I reckon he's a sneaky place chance. Well, as it turns out, he finished 5th. And not far behind the winners.
The Gath's it's a great harness family, isn't it?
It is.
The whole Gath family. I suppose they just wouldn't know anything else to do other than just keep driving, I suppose. If that's what you're involved in.
You never know what the future might hold, but I think old Brian at 77 might have just driven his last Inter-Dominion Grand Final of any description, but I think he did himself proud and the horse proud, finishing 5th in that Grand Final. I think it was a great effort by Illawong Stardust. But alas, it's the what I call the new Gavin Lang, Greg Sugars, who took out the final, Luke, and that was a pretty big win for him.
It was a big win, Vince. Hopefully, can you hear me? It's dropping out again. Or from my end, I can sort of hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a big win for Greg Sugars. Very happy for Sugars. He was able to lead for most of the way. And really, it was probably not the most entertaining Trotters Grand Final. I think out of the 2 Grand Finals, Vince, we expected the Trotters Grand Final to be the if anything, the big one of the 2, but it probably didn't turn out well. It didn't turn out that way. It definitely didn't turn out that way. Not in regards to post-race for the race, which I'm sure we are about to touch on.
Yes. Now let's talk about the controversial one, the pacing Grand Final.
Yeah.
And, wow, who would have predicted that this would have happened at the end of the race?
Where do we start?
Give us a quick rundown of what happened in the pacing Grand Final.
Well, Expensive
of course,
Ego
let's first talk about who were the most favoured runners before the race even started.
Well, they were the 2 stalemates. The McCarthy stable that dominated the heats They won all 3 heats on one of the 3 rounds of heats. Night 1, they won 2 of the 3 heats with Expensive Ego, King of Swing. Those 2 then followed up on night 2, and another stalemate won the 3rd heat. So they clean sweep the 2nd round, and then the 2 good horses, King of Swing, Expensive Ego, won again on the 3rd round of heats at Newcastle, 2nd round at Bathurst, and the 1st round was in Sydney or at Menangle, which hosted the grand final. But as it turned out, King of Swing, in my opinion, is a horse that needs to lead, and if he doesn't lead, he doesn't win, in my opinion. And that's
you did say that, yes, last week.
Yeah, and I was proven wrong when he won at Bathurst, but most of the time, if he doesn't lead, I just don't think he wins, in my opinion. But and as it turned out, he drew the 2nd row, and Expensive Ego drew barrier 1, and Expensive Ego was crossed early behind the horse that it was expected to cross to get in behind and get the nice sit behind him, Bonsall Benjamin. And King of Swing made a move mid-race to move outside of the stalemate, and with about coming towards the top of the straight, you could tell King of Swing was gone and Expensive Ego was cruising. And Expensive Ego probably looked the winner, didn't he, Vince, at coming into the straight, but all of a sudden he shifted out. Bonsall Benjamin, who was behind him, about a 50 or 60 to 1 chance, has gone for an inside run, has been cut off. Expensive Ego then went back to try and keep his line, which he had drifted out of. And Bonsall Benjamin then had to be steady.
Restrained initially.
And somehow, despite being interfered with, actually charged to the line to only be beaten ahead, which, as I think I said to you, I even said it on radio this morning. The horse was not entitled to do that after being interfered with. I mean, really, when a horse gets interfered with, it's probably the equivalent of a human getting kicked in the guts. That's probably the way of putting it. You just lose all your momentum. So for the horse to charge for the line, it probably looked as if it was an unlucky loser. Well, the connections fired in a protest. And for the first time in history in the biggest race in harness racing, a protest second against first was upheld. So the first past the post was not the winner. And the biggest race of the year was decided in the stewards' room. Of course, we did see the Cox Plate decided in the stewards' room second against first in the thoroughbreds, but of course that was dismissed and this was upheld. And I think, Vince, in the Inter-Dominion is the race in harness racing, and there's never a bad Inter-Dominion. It didn't look the best Inter-Dominion on paper this year, but there's always controversy. The Inter-Dominions make themselves. They are always full of.
Luke, had he not finished second and finished 3rd or 4th, how would they have looked at that? How do you feel? Do you feel the fact that he finished second was just shown there was a good thing beaten, basically, right? Or how would they have reevaluated that?
Wasn't just that he finished second, Steve, and I think you would agree with this, Vince. If he'd finished second and had been beaten by 2 lengths. Or 5 metres, whatever metres is the measurement in harness racing, not lengths, but let's say 2 or 3 lengths or 2 lengths, and he hadn't made any ground on the first past the post Expensive Ego, I don't think there would have even been a protest. But the fact of the matter, the horse, after being interfered with, charged to the line, and if you watch the replay, as they just go out of camera, they go 10
metres after the finishing post, Steve, it was in front anyway. So to be interfered with in the manner that he was, and then be checked, have to be restrained, and then make another charge and actually make significant ground on the leader to only fail by, a head, and then to be actually in front of that horse 10 metres past the winning post, just made the decision so much more obvious for the stewards, I think. To not have granted that race to the second horse would have been a massive injustice.
Yeah, but in saying that, though, I think you do have to say good on the harness racing New South Wales stewards, because whether it's an obvious decision or not,
it's a big decision. It's a big decision
in the biggest race of the year. I mean, we saw the controversy in the Cox Plate. Now, I don't like being biased, but I was on the horse that was first past the post State of Rest and won a bit of money on it. But I don't like being biased. But he obviously definitely caused interference with the horse that ran second, Animo. But then Animo, he was able to keep on riding Craig Williams. He didn't snatch up at any point, unlike the driver of Josh Gallagher on Bonsall Benjamin, the horse that ended up winning the Inter-Dominion final, and then had a clear run to the line. I think the interference in this race, Vince, compared to the Cox Plate, was probably worse. Would that be a fair call?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was a controversial end to an intriguing series. It wasn't necessarily blessed with the best talented horses going around. I think, probably was the best available talent, but a lot of other horses that have got more talent weren't ready to compete. They're either still out spelling or they weren't ready to come back and race. So it was missing a few high flyers, if you want to call them that. But nevertheless, I think the entire series was quite intriguing from one heat to the next. It looked for all money like it was going to be an obvious Luke McCarthy trained Quinella. As Luke said, the market was suggesting, King of Swing favourite at $2, even though it was drawn on the second row at gate 11. So I think to a large extent it was $2 favourite based on reputation and what it had already achieved. The pole horse, number 1, Expensive Ego, the horse that I guess is the heir apparent, you would call him. Well, certainly that's what Fred Hastings, the race caller, called him after the race was over. Little did he know that he was going to lose the race on protest. But Expensive Ego, was $2.60 and obviously well in the market to win. And in the end, he probably should have won if it wasn't for that shifting off the inside line. He could very well have still come out the winner. I don't believe he would have. I think he would have been beaten by Bonsall Benjamin, even if he never shifted off the track. I think Bonsall Benjamin was going far too well behind him, and he proved it by still making ground after interference. So I think the steward's decision was the correct one. I'd just like to make a mention of the third horse, who also started inside the second row and had a nice cushy run on the pegs, as I predicted before the race, Luke. Alta Orlando, a fantastic competitor, has often come second and third in these sorts of races. It's come third again at 80-1. And I know a couple of people who had a little nibble at that for the place and did quite nicely. But that's another fantastic horse trained by the McCarthys. King of Swing weekend to finish 5th as the favourite. The fourth horse was the Chris Alford-driven Max Delight, the Victorian horse, who also had a pegs run. So, in essence, the first 4 horses over the line were leaders back, 3 back the fence, and 4 back the fence. So, it really was, I guess, the writing was on the wall after the Trotters Grand Final that the pegs was the place to be, wasn't it, Luke?
Yeah. Again, Vince, I can't really make out what you're saying, but I think I can make out what you're saying. But it was it's this internet here in my house is disgusting.
That's all right. It mustn't work too well in Gisborne. Get those mice to pedal a bit faster.
It was a race that was dominated by the horses on the inside. Hopefully you guys can hear me. It was a race that was dominated by the horses on the inside. And really, if you weren't on the pegs, you may as well, against the inside of the track, you may as well have forgotten about it. And you did think Alta Orlando could run a place, and it did. Max Delight went to the inside behind him, which was probably Chris Alford was always going to do that, drawn directly outside Alta Orlando, barrier 2 on the second line behind the mobile barrier. And, and again, King of Swing, I say that he has to lead, but again, a bit like the penny drops in the Trotters division, he probably didn't go that bad because he was the first horse home that wasn't against the inside. So whilst he, for the first time ever since coming to Sydney or from coming over from Perth, I think it was the first time ever that he's missed a place. He probably didn't go all that bad in the scheme of things. Just confirming, Vince, that was the biggest upset in the Inter-Dominion since Chris Lewis won the race as a 20-year-old on Car-Clue in Adelaide in 1976. That was the biggest upset in the grand final for 45 years.
And good luck to you if you had a piece of 50-1 on Bonsall Benjamin.
Yeah. Well, I didn't.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah, so...
But anyway...
what I was going to say... What I was going to say quickly, Vince, is that Inter-Dominions never disappoint. And I think even... regardless of the talent in possibly that was lacking in this series, I think it the Inter-Dominion proved it never disappoints, whether it's, Blacks of Fate getting beaten by Mr. Feelgood, or whether it's Shaker Maker or our Savants a lot.
A champion usually wins it, doesn't it?
Disqualified. Well, so many of the great horses haven't won it. Popular Ram. I saw Paleface Adios. He didn't win it. Pure Steel didn't win it. There's a lot of great horses that not won it.
That's like saying a lot of champion. That's like saying a lot of champion footballers have never won the Brownlow medal.
Yeah, well,
Lee Matthews, Wayne Carey. How many others you want me to name?
Yeah, but there's probably a good point to be made that possibly the best horses haven't won the Inter-Dominion over the years. I mean, don't get me wrong, some absolute champions have, but it's not necessarily the best horse.
Is it the way the Inter-Dominion's structured, though, regarding the heats, regarding the short amount of time and gaps between races and so forth, right? It's not your standard interval, is it? Yeah.
It's a survival of the fittest, Steve. I mean, you got three grueling heats that are run over different distances. You've got one over 2,400, one over 2,000, and one over 1,600, and then the finals over 3,000 meters. So no race is the same as the previous one. So it's quite an intriguing series, but it's also a punishing one on the horses. And some of them are not up to doing that, and some of them are.
But that's what makes the Inter-Dominion. That is what makes we saw a few different formats, Vince, and they were disgraceful. Disgraceful. It was like making the Melbourne Cup a 2,000 metre weight for it was like making the Melbourne Cup like the Australian Cup, making it a 2,000 metre weight for age race. We saw some different formats that were nothing short of disgraceful, in my opinion. Yeah. But now it's back to the traditional 3 rounds of heats in the final, and it is. The only thing is that I think it needs to be $1 million, the paces. But I still think from what we saw last night is that it's still the race.
It is.
And there's always drama in an Inter-Dominion. And we saw probably the most drama-packed Inter-Dominion ever last night. And there's been a lot of action-packed Inter-Dominions. There has been...
Well, it's a little bit now like the Melbourne Cup. It's not necessarily the race in Australia with the most prize money anymore.
Yeah,
even though it's $8 million, there's another race in Sydney called the Everest, which is almost double that much. It's funny. So but at the end of the day, the Melbourne Cup is still the Melbourne Cup, and it's still the most prestigious race in Australia to win.
Funnily enough, the most prestigious race in thoroughbred racing is not the richest, the Melbourne Cup. The most prestigious race in harness racing, the Inter-Dominion, is not the richest, the Inter-Dominion. And the 2 most prestigious races in greyhounds, the Melbourne Cup in Melbourne, is no longer the richest greyhound race in Victoria, because we've got one of these slot races that has been modelled on the Everest, being run this coming Saturday night at the Meadows. And, of course, the Golden Easter Egg, which would be the most prestigious greyhound race in New South Wales, is no longer the richest greyhound race in New South Wales, but it's the most prestigious. So none of the so-called greatest races are the richest, which are...
You can't buy history.
Disgraceful, in my opinion.
You can't buy history, though.
You can't. No, you can't. You can't. No, you can't, Steve.
You're trying to, though. You can do a good job, but you can't quite get it.
Hey, look, we'll wrap things up, mate. Yeah. We'll wrap things up. Just very quickly, you were over at Stall today, that famous country town in Western Victoria that holds the famous foot race every Easter called the Stall Gift. And you were there today to call the running of the Stall Pacing Cup and the Stall Trotters Cup. What happened over there today? Was it anything worth telling us?
Well, the Pacing Cup wasn't the greatest spectacle of all time. The feature race of the day was probably the most disappointing race of the day, to be honest, because the favourite, Our Millionaire, just went straight to the lead and it was game over. But the Trotters Cup, from the standing start, Vince, the handicap, it was the most entertaining race of the day by a long way. I did say
surprise.
Yeah, well, I've got to be
careful. Steve, it happens to be my belief, and I'm pretty sure Luke agrees with me, that
I've got to be careful.
There should be a lot more standing start racing happening in harness racing. They've really eliminated most of it, especially in pacing. There's just no standing start races for pacing at all. The only standing starts you get now are for trotters races.
That's
And
the
even then, not every
very,
trotters race is a stand start.
they're the variables, though. Being able to actually, get into stride properly. Handle that, have that handicap as well. Obviously, if there's the handicap, and you can overcome the handicap quite easily if the front rowers don't get off to a good handicap
front markers,
front markers. Pardon me. Yes, yeah.
Front markers,
Whereas essentially, if it's a mobile start, if the favourite draws the one off to the fence, stacks them up, and off you go. And I think the integrity of the sport, then, people throw questions at the integrity of the sport when really it's not necessarily an integrity issue. It's just how it's structured for a mobile start, where the widest horse on the mobile really has got no chance. It's got to somehow try and get itself on the fence to try and have any chance at all.
Yeah. Look, I'm employed by Harness Racing Victoria, who made the decision 6 years ago nearly now to ban standing starts to paces, and I don't necessarily agree with that, and I'm happy to say that.
There's a lot of states that haven't. There's a lot of states that continue to run standing start races for pacing. Yeah. I know that there's still standing starts in Tasmania and in
there's actually been
South
a
Australia and in Western Australia.
Because there's been a revive of the standing starts there, because the Tasmanian Cup was a standing start, and it went to a mobile, and now it's back to a stand. But
the beauty of it too, Luke, is that you don't have this situation where the best horses can draw barrier 1 or 2, and it's pretty much race over, and the favourite starts at $1.10. You've got a lot more value. If you're prepared to back the favourite off a 30-metre back mark, you're probably going to get your $3 or $4 sometimes instead of $1.10.
Yeah.
From a punting perspective.
Well, part of my job is to do the form for each race, and come up with a set of selections. It takes a few hours to do the form for most meetings. It depends on how many horses and races there are, but I actually enjoy doing the form for my two favourite races to do the form for are actually maidens, believe it or not, and handicaps.
Right.
Handicaps, which effectively are trotters standing starts, because there's no paces handicaps.
Now, listen, we'll have to wrap up now, Lukey, because we've been probably going too long, but want to wish you all the best for this week. I know you've got a busy week calling heats of the Vic Bred Super Series on Tuesday and Thursday, and you're also calling the Cranbourne Pacing Cup. Used to be a Group 1 race, now it's a Group 2 race, but it's nevertheless a very prestigious race, and you'll be calling that next Saturday night on the 18th. So if anyone out there hasn't listened to Luke call racing before, I suggest you get out there and tune in on Saturday night at Cranbourne. He'll be calling the Cranbourne Pacing Cup, and it should be a great race.
Hopefully. No, thank you again for having me on the show, Vince, and I apologise for these technical issues. Seems to be working now, depending on how I hold the computer, believe it or not. But anyway.
Well, it looks like you've been on a boat. I've got to be honest, that camera kept shaking around. It was almost making me seasick there.
Yeah. Well,
but
I'll
anyway,
tell you now, if I move it somewhere else, I won't be able to hear you. But anyway, we'll
and don't forget those heats of the Vic Bred Super Series during the week that you're calling. They culminate in a race meeting on New Year's Eve at Tabcorp Park, Melton, where it's the only race meeting in the world, I believe, where all 12 races, not 8, not 9, not 10, but 12 Group 1 races, all on the one night, and it's New Year's Eve at Melton. It should be a big night. And, of course, there's lots of other attractions there on the night for families and kids, and a fireworks display, of course, at midnight, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a great night. There are programs in the world that do have every race as a Group 1 race, but I don't think there's any more than 12. So it's quite a remarkable night what they've done. It's a big night. They get a big crowd there, so it'll be a great night. And heats kick off this week. And but the highlight of the coming week should be the Cranbourne Cup, on Saturday night, which it's one of the biggest races I've called to date. So I'm looking forward to it, mate.
Should be terrific. And New Year's Eve at Melton. I can personally vouch for it. I've been to a couple. It is absolutely sensational. And the fireworks display really is something to behold. It is a fantastic display. It's just very, very similar to what you'll see in the city. It's just that it happens to be out at Melton, which is about, 45-minute drive out to the west. But it's a great night. If you've got nothing better to do, head out to Tabcorp Park, Melton, on New Year's Eve with your partner or your family, and have a great night. It should be fantastic. A big crowd, as you said, Luke, and 12 Group 1 races to entertain you as well throughout the course of the night. Luke, again, all the very best for this week. Thanks for joining us tonight, mate, and giving us a rundown of the Inter-Dominion Grand Finals last night.
Well, yeah, again, my apologies for the issues, but the technical
That's all right.
issues, but we've got there. We got there. See?
That's a positive. Persistence pays off.
So good to be with you, Chris. Good to be with you, Steve. I've watched you guys on the show, and good to be with you tonight. So thanks a lot.
Cheers, mate.
Good on you.
Cheers,
all the
Luke.
best.
Good on you, mate.
All righty. Well, that was terrific, and we've got a lot to get through in about 20 minutes, Steve. So without any further delay, let's talk a little bit of golf. I was watching last night the two fantastic Australian golfers, Mark Leishman and Jason Day, play this fantastic tournament over in Florida, which is traditionally called the Shark Shootout, because Greg Norman, the great Australian shark, or the great white shark he used to be called, of course, designed this course over there in Naples, Florida. And he's the one that invites the players there to play this tournament. And do you want to explain to us quickly how it works, the tournament? And there's only 3 days, I believe, not 4. And the 2 Aussies I spoke of are actually holding a 3-shot lead going into the final round, which starts tomorrow morning at about 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it's a scramble format essentially. So best score per hole. You've got Jason Day and Mark Leishman, 2 very close to a pros there. Leishman probably having more success of recent years, but previously, obviously, Jason Day, the former world number 1. And both have got strengths in their game, really strong off the tee, and Day being a really good putter.
I think Leishman's a great putter too, just quietly.
He's improved a lot. That's essentially been his. That's put him up the rankings now. They're leading now. We've got in second place. It's Billy Horschel and Burns. And
so hang on, what's the score? What's the score for Leishman and Day? They're 24.
Yeah, 24 under. 24 under. So
huge score after 2 rounds.
Yeah, it is. It's a
lot of birdies.
Yeah, absolutely. It's made for that. Look at pretty benign conditions, and the Tiburon Golf course. It's a beautiful course, but it's there for the taking if you're playing well. Horschel and Birds at 21 under. Then you've got Matt Kuchar and Harris English at.
They're the defending champions, aren't they?
Absolutely, they're at 20. They're also at 21 under. Then you've also got Kevin Na and Kokrak at also at 21 under. So it's a bit of a log jam there for second. And then at 20 under, Connors and McDowell.
And you're probably better off not going back any further, because I think it's proven in the history of this tournament that any further than 4 shots back heading into the final round and you don't win. I don't think anyone's come back from more than 4 shots behind.
No, that's right. It's a bit of fun. It's you go and see how talented these players are and what they can really do. I mean, they take it seriously, but at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a it's a pre-Christmas sort of get together.
Yeah, it'd make a couple of $1 million each. And
yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you
part of the world to be.
Right? The best golfers in the world. And they deserve it, don't get me wrong, because it's just amazing what they can achieve with a golf ball. But they are living the life, aren't they? I mean, let's be honest. They are living the life of luxury, and making really good money while they're able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, they fly around everywhere. Yes, that is a challenge, and they're not at home. They are living out of a suitcase, but it's not a bad suitcase to live out of, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that's really helped the Aussies is Mark Leishman had a real fantastic run there in the first 2 days. Do you know how many times he holed out from the fairway? His second shot into a par 4, and he has one bounce and bingo straight into the hole from about 150 metres away.
He's wedge
had
playing
some fantastic luck in that respect.
As Gary Player once said,
when I say luck, obviously he's going for it, but you got to say that there's an element of luck in having a holdout like that.
There's an element of luck, but as Gary Player once said, the more I practice, the luckier I get. But
that's true.
But you are right. But his wedge play is short iron play is amazing as well, and that's another area of his game he's taken to a new level. But sometimes it happens for you, and sometimes it doesn't. But it certainly happened for him.
Well, I just hope that they can keep that going in the final round, because if it wasn't for those holeouts, they'd probably also be on 20 or 21 under like the rest of them. So let's hope that run of luck can continue and that they don't strike any bad luck in this final round, because they really have played some exciting golf.
No, it'd be good to see those two Aussies
the Aussies doing so well on the world stage, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There's another Aussie, Matt Jones, who's also playing with another chap in a different group, but I think they're pretty much the only 3 Aussies competing. But then, of course, we have a bit of a break, don't we, until the first of 2 tournaments in early January held in Hawaii.
The Aloha Swing, as they call it, the Hawaiian Open, and also the normally the traditional season opener there at Maui as well. Beautiful part of the world. Look forward to that.
Sensational views across those holes there in Hawaii. It's just a sight to see, really. I love watching golf for 2 reasons. One is to watch the best players in the world hit a golf ball and how they can make it talk, literally. With the way they play, their drives, their iron shots, their wedges, the short game, the putting. It's just incredible how they can, how they perfect their art. But also the picturesque nature of a lot of these golf courses, especially over there in the USA. Some of them are just picture postcard stuff.
Look, I'm biased, obviously, right? At the end of the day, a tennis court, okay, you've got clay, you've got hard court, you've got grass. Yes, that's the difference.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know what part of the world you're in looking at a tennis court, would you?
Absolutely. And a football ground.
That's why they normally have the name of the city down at one end of the court. I think we actually started that when we played our Australian Open many, many years ago. We put Melbourne down the bottom. I think it was back in the Kennett years.
That was the Victoria 90s, on the move. Victoria on the move years. Yeah, that was Yeah,
we're promoting Melbourne to the rest of the world, and I think we put Melbourne at the bottom of the tennis court, and then all of these other cities around the world have done the same. But other than that name down the bottom, when you first tune into a tennis match, you wouldn't know where you are, really.
Absolutely. Whereas you look at the geography of a golf course, you could be on a links course in Scotland or Ireland. You could have a parkland golf course in America where essentially you could eat your breakfast off the fairways, immaculate. You've got the natural environment there, and they put a tee, a fairway, and a green, and essentially whatever is there from an architectural perspective is what the golfer has to negotiate.
Yes.
And without going on a tangent, if you ever look at the top 100 golf courses in the world, Vince, listing, and that's another debate for which one should or shouldn't be there. We've got about half a dozen in Australia that make that list. They are so diverse, so eclectic, from such different geographical, climates, continents, etc. Yet they all share the same thing. So there's a people that have got a bit more money than you and I, they have their bucket list to play as many of those golf courses as they can, just to have that experience.
Yeah, very much so. Hey, the other thing I've got to say is I'm really looking forward to the British Open next year, because it's going to be held at one of my favourite courses, if not my favourite course, not because it's necessarily the most picturesque like a lot of those American courses, but the traditional home of golf. It's St Andrews in Scotland. It's just going to be something to behold. Next year, the British Open, you can't miss that if you're a golf fanatic.
Yeah, the Burn, the Road Hole, the University Town,
the Road Hole on the 17th hole, the Road Hole.
The fence,
the
rock wall. Yep. People have come to grips in that bunker on 17.
The
it's
double
like
green. Vacuum cleaner, that bunker.
Absolutely. Yeah. The double green. So it's a beautiful part.
You just marvel at the history of that place. It's a place you'd just love to go and visit as part of your bucket list before you end up, leaving this planet. You'd love to go to a place like that as a golf fan and just soak in the history of it all. And if you're fortunate enough to get on the course and actually have a round, geez, why wouldn't you take the opportunity, eh? To say that you played a round of golf at St Andrews.
Spot on. No, that is probably the place to go to. That's for sure. People go from all over the world there too. Yeah.
Well, we've got some other golf tournaments coming up in January as well. Apart from those two in picturesque Hawaii, we've also got I think the AT&T Championships at Pebble Beach, and that's right. A wonderful golf course, Pebble Beach over there in California, and of course, not too much further down the track is going to be the Players Championship at TPC Sawgrass with its famous island hole, the 17th at Sawgrass, where you've got to hit it over the water and onto one little green, and if you don't make the green, you're going in for a swim to get your ball.
It's only 130 odd meters, right?
But how many balls go in the water, Steve?
Well, you've got the.
It's intimidating, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very intimidating.
Yeah, it's a psychological thing. If you didn't have that water there, it was just hitting a wedge shot to a green, you wouldn't have a problem, right?
My word. All right. Well, that's the world of golf. Let's hope that the Aussies can hold on and shoot another fantastic low score in the final round of the Shark Shootout there in Naples, Florida, where all those poor people live. It's a beautiful resort there too. They've got all sorts of things there for the family if you're staying there.
People in America,
water slides and all sorts of things there at that resort.
So I've spent a bit of time in Florida, and people in America essentially they have their winter home. Yeah. If they live up on the East Coast, so there may be a New York financier or banker or have another. So they'll have their winter home, and then they'll have their in the summertime they'll be up north again. So they sort of they have that lifestyle, and they're all gated communities, and there's everything there for you.
That's to keep all the poor people out. Anyway, we'll move on from golf and move on to the world of the round ball game in soccer. We didn't even touch on soccer last week. I think we ran out of time. But and I can't believe my phone hasn't cut out yet. So if it happens to cut out, I'll jump straight back on. But we've got the Premier League again. In fact, I should actually touch on the Champions League, Steve. We had some matches in the Champions League during the week, and they were, in fact, the last of the 6 matches in the group stage. So we've seen some high-profile teams miss out on moving into the round of 16.
Absolutely. It's starting to get a little bit cold in Europe.
The Northern Hemisphere?
Yeah. Absolutely. We've seen some games that have had snow and other sorts of challenges. But
if we quickly go through the groups, we won't go through the individual results, but let's look at the teams that have made it through to this round of 16, which is the next round of matches. and not every team that's missed out, but let's identify the ones that you probably have expected to make it through that actually missed out. So in Group A, Manchester City and
PSG.
Paris Saint-Germain, you would have expected those two, wouldn't you?
Well, they're the two. They're the two clubs that are certainly not short of $1, are they? Or a euro?
So RB Leipzig missed out and Club Brugge missed out. Group B.
Liverpool and Atletico, Porto and Milan. Yeah, no surprises there.
That was a pretty strong group, I thought, that one. I mean, Porto's made it through to finals before, and Milan's no easy beat in the Italian league. So that was a very strong group. But Liverpool, 6 games, 6 wins. They are looking unbeatable at the moment.
Yeah, they're the European specialists, aren't they? They're just getting it done at home. Yet on the road, they're very good.
Much to our chagrin, right, Beachy?
Absolutely.
Us Everton supporters seeing Liverpool unbeaten in the group stage of the Champions League.
Your neighbours.
Yeah, we'll probably only celebrate. We'll probably only celebrate when they get knocked out.
Yeah. Going to Group C.
Steve?
Ajax. No surprise, but Borussia Dortmund missing out on goal difference there. Sporting Lisbon getting through.
That was a bit of an. I didn't expect Borussia Dortmund to miss out.
No, that's they're arguably one of, if not
fairly
the top.
Strong German team with Haaland playing for them too, isn't he?
That's right.
Players in the world. And Group D.
Real and Inter getting through.
Real Madrid.
No surprises there. Sheriff Tiraspol and Shakhtar Donetsk missing out there.
So no surprises in Group D. Group E, a
Group E,
surprise Bayern, there, I would have thought.
Bayern getting through. But, when you say surprise, Barcelona haven't been playing that well domestically. You're thinking of probably the old Barcelona.
Probably. But I still expected them to make it past this stage, but they've missed
Benfica
out by 1
through.
point and about 5 goals on the goal difference.
Yeah, so it was. It was close. Dinamo Kiev there, unfortunately,
the Ukrainian club.
1 draw. At least they got a point.
Bayern Munich, again, a bit like Liverpool. Bayern Munich, a very strong side. They actually won the Champions League last year, and they've gone through undefeated. Not only undefeated, but not even a draw. They've got 6 wins, 6 matches, 6 wins.
If you look at that group, it's not just 6 wins. The goal difference, they won the goal difference by 21 goals.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And Group F?
Man U. Man U topping that group. They're getting their act together a little bit more domestically, considering the sacking of Ole Gunnar. Absolutely. They've done well though in the Champions League, so they've won their group. Villarreal, Atalanta missing out, and BSC Young Boys missing out. So probably no surprises there.
That was another fairly strong group, and
Atalanta are a decent team.
Interestingly, Man United before their last game victory, they weren't even on the top of the ladder there. They've ended up being top of the ladder with 11 points. Villarreal 10. They're a fairly strong Spanish side now. Atalanta has also been quite a strong side in the Italian league. So I always thought that it would be between Villarreal and Atalanta for that second spot. Interesting that Villarreal were the ones that got through. So well done to both Man United and Villarreal making it through. Group G.
Lille and FC Red Bull Salzburg getting through there. Sevilla are a decent team. Unfortunately, just missed out there with Red Bull Salzburg.
They're my favourite team in the Spanish league, and they missed out. They're not good enough. Only 1 win out of 6 matches. I think even though they drew 3 of them, those 2 losses ended up telling because they weren't winning enough games.
Yeah, exactly. And Wolfsburg bringing up the rear there, no surprise. Group H, Juve and Chelsea getting through there. That would have been
expected.
Yeah, Malmo and St. Petersburg, unfortunately, just out of their class there.
So you'd probably say, in summary, all of the teams you'd expect to get through got through, apart from maybe you could argue the point on Porto in Group B, who missed out. They're the Portuguese team. Borussia Dortmund, we discussed the German team. You would have maybe expected them to make it. Barcelona, arguably, in Group E.
Would they have gone anywhere, though, had they qualified?
Probably not, but no. Still expected them to make through to the round of 16. So Barcelona. And the other one I thought was my own team there, Sevilla. I thought that they might have got through to the round of 16. But these teams will now revert back to the Europa League, and they'll have a chance to win the Europa League, which is the sort of second-tier Champions League, if you like, in Europe.
Yeah, well, you've got to have an
it's
interest
like going through to the second division.
Yeah, it gives them an interest, and there's still a lot to play for from a Europa League perspective, and gives their supporters a taste of European football nonetheless.
Yep. All right, let's quickly look at the English Premier, all of the various leagues around Europe. First, let's start with England and the English Premier League. Not every team's played the same amount of games, but let's not let that bother us. Let's look at the current teams in the top four. We've got Man City on top.
Yeah, Man City on top. West Ham beat Chelsea the other week, so that put Chelsea back. That essentially replaced.
It was a great win by West Ham at home, 3-2.
Yeah, it was a good match, actually, end-to-end stuff. Really good match, a local derby there.
They're a strong team this year, West Ham, under former Everton manager David Moyes there, Beachy.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's shown he can produce after sort of being how we say
apparent to
hiding to nothing.
Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, but didn't quite work out for him.
Absolutely. Liverpool doing very well. They're 1 point behind. They're just getting it done. Nothing special.
So the top three have really put a gap on the other teams that are all basically competing for that fourth Champions League spot, which currently West Ham hold on goal difference from Man United. But you've got teams like Arsenal and Tottenham breathing down their necks as well. Yeah,
I'd say you're probably looking at, I don't know if Spurs are good enough, albeit, yes, mathematically they're there. I reckon it's probably West Ham and Man U for that fourth and fifth spot. Arsenal on their day are very, very competitive, though.
Yes, and I believe that COVID's gone right through the Tottenham team as well, someone was saying earlier. So Tottenham's got a few question marks there. But our team, Everton, Beachy, are back up to 13th on the ladder after being down as low as about 16th, I think, at one stage, or 17th, yes. I can't remember. But they had a win over Arsenal last week, which was a very encouraging victory, 2-1 on Monday night. And, well, they've still got a way to go, but at least they finally broke that run of outs.
Exactly. And, they had to rely on a 92nd minute winner in injury time to defeat the Gunners at home, which, if you were at the ground, would have been as stressful as all get out, because that's not exactly ideal. But
the stands at Goodison Park would have been shaking after that goal, I can assure you. It was a great goal too. Demarai Gray from outside the box, just a fantastic shot. And look, I honestly thought that they were the best team that night, and they finally got their just rewards. They were peppering away and finally got it done. But a long way to go there. But
Palace away.
They'll get up closer to the top half of the table than the bottom half.
You've got Palace away coming up. Yeah,
we've got Palace on Monday night again. So that won't be easy. But Crystal Palace, always hard to beat at home. All right, let's move on from the English Premier League to the Spanish La Liga. What can you tell us there, Steve?
I'm just getting my table up.
We've got Real Madrid with a comfortable 5-point lead over my favourite team, which just always fails to just quite get to the top. Sevilla on 34. Real Betis, which is another team based out of Seville, which is on 30 points. They're in third. They're a bit of the surprise packet this year. In fact, they had a good win over Barcelona last week. And Atletico Madrid, which dropped a match as well last week, are also just holding on to fourth position in the top four from Real Sociedad, who are only out on goal difference. So, Real Madrid, Seville, and Atletico Madrid usually finish in the top four, but Barcelona currently in 8th position.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. Look, they've got a game in hand there, but nonetheless, eighth position. You're starting to be down with clubs that have certainly a different salary cap or a different financial position, I should say, than they do. And you never think to see Barcelona outside the top four, would you?
You wouldn't have thought so, but they've done another Michael Voss. They've brought back a favourite son. Well, when he was at Brisbane anyway, they brought back a favourite son to come and manage the team, Xavi Alonso.
Yeah, that's right. We'll see how that goes. It hasn't worked
out that well for him so far.
No.
They missed out on the Champions League progression, so they're out of the Champions League, and they're losing matches in the La Liga to sides like Real Betis, which are now third on the ladder.
Yeah, I think they're waiting for the transfer window, to be honest. But I don't know if that could save them the way. I
wonder if it's the problem when you lose a really gun player like Lionel Messi, who's been part of the fabric of that team for the last decade and more, really. And finally he leaves, and all of a sudden you've got this problem of having to cover someone so dominant, so prevalent, and, you know, a player that you built your whole team around.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the confidence that he would, you know, all the players had just walked that bit taller on the pitch, wouldn't they, with him around them. The succession planning's probably not been there, though. I mean, he was going to leave eventually, wasn't he?
Well, interestingly, he hasn't made a world of difference to PSG, where he's gone in the French league. I mean, they are on top of the ladder, and he is contributing, but they are not what you'd call reliant on him to the extent that Barcelona was, to a large extent, reliant on him.
He'd be the cherry on the cake at PSG, really. I mean, PSG.
It's almost like Gary Ablett coming back to Geelong. You know, he's no longer the Gary Ablett he used to be, but he still adds a bit of value around the place and kicks you.
Yeah, if you could kick a few goals out of a forward pocket, it'd be all right, isn't it?
Yeah. And well, it'll be interesting to see if Barcelona can fight their way back into the top four. I doubt it. I've got a feeling that the top two teams have got enough of a break there to probably stay in those two positions between now and the end of the year. But there's still a lot of football to be played. Basically, around 16 matches. Everyone's played about 15, 16 or 17 matches. So there's still more than double that to go. So I think it's 38 matches in the end. So there's still another 21, 22, 23 matches for most of those teams to play.
Yeah, you normally see, though, a lot can change, but you do normally see the trend start to emerge by the midway part of the season. Normally by Christmas, not much changes.
Let's go to the Italian Serie A. And as we saw, Milan missed out on progression in the Champions League, but they do hold the lead in the Italian league, which is a bit of a surprise to many, especially with Juventus being out of the top four. And that traditionally, they are the team that normally holds top position. But yet again, having lost Cristiano Ronaldo, similar story to Barcelona, isn't it? They relied on him so much, now they don't quite perform as well without him. Absolutely, and it's showing, isn't it? I mean, they're still within striking distance, but it's a terrible year for them. Their supporters who, shall we say, are a confident bunch. One could say they're arrogant. Carlton-like of the 1970s and 80s. Yeah. And maybe part of the 90s. Yeah, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to seeing them in this position. Yeah. Although Juventus has got those black and white stripes that I can't stand. That's one of the reasons I don't support them. Otherwise, I probably would have supported Juventus if it wasn't for those black and white stripes. I've decided to follow a team where my cousins live in Florence called Fiorentina, and they're actually playing really well this year. They're just outside the top four. They're in fifth position at the moment. In fact, they're ahead of Juventus, who are in sixth position. But do you want to just quickly go through the top four for us? Yeah, so Milan on 39, Internazionale Milan on 37. So you want a derby between those two teams. Lock your car and you talk about dividing a city. Yeah, that's one of the big ones all over the world. Yeah, my word.
Napoli 36. I mean, they've got a game in hand and they're one game behind, but they do have a healthier goal difference there. So Napoli had a very, very good season thus far. And as we mentioned earlier, Atalanta 34. So they've also got a game in hand. So it's more of a logjam at the top here for the Serie A. It's a very interesting competition. And as you said, Vince, just behind in fifth spot Florentino on 30 points.
Yes, Fiorentina in 17 matches have not had one draw. They either win or they lose. They've had 10 wins and 7 losses.
That's the Italian way, isn't it?
I'm hopeful that they can continue going with more wins than losses and make the top 4. But we'll soon see. Yes, very interesting, the Italian league at the moment. We'll move now to the French League 1. And runaway leaders at the top of the ladder are PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, as you'd expect with all of those stars in it, like Mbappe and Lionel Messi and what's the other one's name? The Brazilian? I'm trying to think of his name. His name escapes me. Neymar. Thank you very much, Peachy. I know you weren't just there for your good looks. Neymar.
Yeah. It gets boring, doesn't it?
On top of the ladder, and they get their first 3 positions go through to the Champions League, don't they, Steve?
They do, yeah. So based on the weighting system, it gets boring, doesn't it? I mean, look, they play such beautiful football, but really, they're starting to build
money.
Yeah,
they've got too much money. But
they do.
It's interesting to see who's up in second position. They're traditionally not a
powerhouse.
Side, but, geez, they're doing well this year.
Absolutely. They're at 31 points. Marseille with a game in hand at 29.
Yeah.
And then Montpellier, Nice, Lens, all sort of around that mark. So then it starts to drop away a little bit further.
Yes, and my team, Monaco, whatever you prefer. I always say Monaco. They're in 8th position. On 26 points. Now, that's only 3 points away from the top 3. So it's not that far behind. There's a bit of a logjam really between 3rd position and really 12th down as far as Brest in 12th position.
It's almost in these with teams so dominant such as PSG. You're playing for that Champions League spot, aren't you? Really, or not to be relegated. There's almost 3 competitions within the actual table itself. Obviously, PSG are gonna win almost every year nearly, and then you've got the Champions League remaining spots, and then the relegation battle at the other side of the table.
Yeah. By the way, I've just got to point out something that happened to me. It was very funny during the week. I was looking at the French league, and there was a game between the team that's 5th on the ladder, Nice, and the team that's 12th on the ladder, which is, I think, pronounced Brest. And Nice was the home team, and my little daughter came up and said, "What's it say? Nice breast." I said, "Oh my God." I never realised that up until you mentioned it. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you at the end of the show, or close to the end of the show. Maybe our last show after that. Anyway, French League 1.
It's disintegrated anyway.
We have disintegrated. But anyway, let's go to our final league, which is the German Bundesliga. We won't go anywhere else around the world. And again, the traditional number 1 team, a little bit like PSG in the French league, Bayern Munich, 37 points, 12 wins, and only 1 draw and 2 losses in 15
Look at the
matches.
goal difference there, Vince. There, 31, 18 goals to the better.
Ahead of Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah. That's an average of more than 1 goal a game.
And the other thing is, in the Champions League, they won all 6 of their matches, whereas Borussia Dortmund didn't even get enough points to make it through to the round of 16. Just goes to show you the gulf in ability and performance between that top team, Bayern Munich, and the rest.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Bayer Leverkusen and Hoffenheim are 3rd and 4th on the ladder, but they're 10 and 11 points behind after only 15 matches. So you wouldn't expect anyone would overhaul Bayern Munich unless they have run of bad luck with injuries or something like that, because they're just dominant.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, they've got it wrapped up, I would think.
All right. Well, that's probably as much as we're going to cover there. I'll just get you to touch base. You two gentlemen are A-League fanatics. What's been happening in the A-League here in Australia?
So we'll quickly touch on last night. Melbourne Victory played Adelaide United away and what's classified as the cross-border derby or the original rivalry. And I'm happy to report that the Victory came away with the points. They came away with the points against the Reds, because it's usually a very intense game against Adelaide United, which I'm sure, Steve, you will agree with.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually headed over to Adelaide for that game, and
oh wow,
yeah, we had 1,000 supporters go over there. So
they let you in, did they?
2 COVID tests. Yeah, COVID test 2 hours before, and then a COVID test at the airport, 2-hour queue up. So 1,000 people had to do that. Anyway, it was a great game. Victory dominated. Marco Rojas could have probably scored a hat trick in the first. I mean, it doesn't always work this way, but he could have scored a hat trick in the first half. He was really getting in behind the defence of Adelaide. Hit the post, shot wide, and then there was another opportunity. Essentially, Jake Brimmer had an open goal and just spooned it over the roof of the net. Really almost harder to miss than score.
Yeah.
And it was 0-0 at half time. Victory came and scored and was 1-0 up, and you thought, how far Victory? Adelaide then came back. They're a great side, they run out games very, very well.
Yeah.
They came back, and it was an own goal to Matthew Sporanovic, although it was claimed by Trapp that he did score. And then some great substitutions by Tony Popovic. Really then Robbie Cruz really injected into running down the wing, and there was a lot more pace, and Victory started to attack again, and a really good end-to-end stuff. And Victory scored a goal around the 80th minute there with young Nishan Villipale, the young academy product, scoring, and it was a 2-1 victory.
Mm.
There were some other good games as well. During the round. If you want to just to quickly touch on them, Beachy, I don't know if you'd like to do that.
I'll quickly touch on them. There was one game today, actually. Central Coast Mariners upsetting Sydney FC 2-0 at the Gosford Stadium, or Central Coast Stadium, whatever the heck you want to call it. Probably not the most expected result there, considering how well Sydney have played over the last little while, but nonetheless, a great result for the Central Coast Mariners. Macarthur FC knocking off Western Sydney away at Combank Stadium, formerly known as the Westbank Stadium in Parramatta, and Western United beating Brisbane Roar, followed by previously with the Newcastle Jets routing Wellington Phoenix, and Melbourne City beating Perth Glory at Amy Park. 1-0 there.
Yeah, the surprise for me was the 4-0 victory for Newcastle under new coach Arthur Pappas there, who was, of course, deputy to Ange Postecoglou over in Japan. That's an amazing victory, really. But more importantly, just looking at the table here, Macarthur, the team that in their second season, they're on top with 10 points. Melbourne Victory, 3 wins, 1 loss, 9 points. Western United, 3 wins, 1 loss, also 9 points. Melbourne City, 2 wins, 2 draws at 7 points.
So the 3 Melbourne teams are in second, third, and fourth on the ladder. That's pretty strong if you're a fan of any of those 3 Melbourne teams.
Absolutely. And then more interestingly, Vince, and this is where it really, albeit it's early days, all the teams have only played 4 times.
The 2 rivals on the coast there in New South Wales.
Yeah, that's right.
Central Coast and Newcastle filling 5th and 6th at the moment.
Exactly. So It's been a long time before those two teams have been that hot. Well, Central Coast did play finals last year, but Newcastle finished towards the bottom of the ladder. Looking down the other side, Sydney FC, 4 games, 2 draws, 2 losses, sitting 11th on the table.
Very unusual.
Extremely unusual there. And Brisbane Raw, albeit they've played lots of away games because of their Premier's border closures there. I wouldn't read too much into their position.
1 draw and 3 losses and on the bottom of the ladder with only 1 point.
Do you know, Vince, you talk about border closures. The poor Brisbane Raw team, they had to fly to Melbourne on the morning of the game because of the quarantine rules. Fly out. Then they played Melbourne City 1 week.
Don't get me started.
Melbourne Victory the other week. And then Western United in Geelong. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not just playing in Melbourne.
No.
You're flying in, you're a FIFO, fly in, fly out on the day.
Yeah.
And good luck. You've got no chance there. So they got 0 points from those games.
That's all right. They can have Anastasia Palachuk to themselves. Anyway, let's move on, guys, because I think my battery's going to go flat in a minute. If I happen to cut out, finish off the show for me.
You haven't cut out this episode. Sorry.
But anyway, I know, but it might cut out altogether if I lose my battery. So MacArthur's on top, Melbourne Victory second, as well as Western United also only 1 point behind. So it's looking like a very competitive A-League season coming up.
Melbourne Derby next week, the Christmas Derby, Victory in City. So that's probably going to be the highlight of the
Victory versus Melbourne City. Yeah, that should be a real highlight for soccer fans here in Melbourne. All right, just very quickly, and something I meant to touch on last Sunday. In fact, it was run last Sunday, but didn't end up getting around to talk about it. But I'll just quickly mention it today. Is in the world of motor racing. We saw the Bathurst 1000. Run and won last Sunday. Fantastic race. I don't know if any of you caught up with it. 161 laps, of course, of Mount Panorama. And a deserving winner, Chaz Mostert and Lee Holdsworth, his driving partner in the Holding Commodore, number 25, part of the Walkinshaw Andretti United team. They were deserved winners. Fantastic result for them. They started in pole position. They broke the lap record in order to achieve that. It looked like it was all going to turn to you-know-what on the 12th lap. They had a left wheel puncture. Sorry, not the 12th lap, the 49th lap. They went from 1st to 12th as a result of that. But, of course, they were helped a little bit by the fact that there were so many incidents in this race that they had to adopt the safety car on no less than 6 occasions during the course of the race. And one of the causes of one of those safety car restarts was an echidna that actually sort of wandered onto the track and caused all sorts of havoc on lap 105. And that caused another restart with the safety car.
Have you been to Bathurst?
I know, I have. I've been there once for the race, and I'll never forget one particular year. I wasn't there for that year, but I remember someone literally had a rock. They pushed a rock that went down the hill, and it went onto the track and killed off any chance of Dick Johnson in his Ford at the time. And he was in the lead and happened to hit the rock and put him out of the race. I'll never forget.
But this is a racetrack that's essentially outside of the time that the race is run. Yeah, it's a regional. You can just go and drive. Yeah, it's amazing
to see an echidna wander onto the racetrack and
only in
cars swerving around it to try and miss it. Anyway, it was a great result for Chaz Mostert. Second was the Cameron Waters James Moffat team in car number 6, the Ford Mustang. Of course, James being the son of Alan Moffat, who was a great winner of Bathurst many years ago. I'll never forget it when he won with Colin Bond back in 1977 in the Ford Falcons. In third was Brodie Kostecki and David Russell in the car number 99 Holden Commodore. And fourth, it's a bit of a pity that he couldn't quite finish on the podium in his last race, his final Bathurst drive. Jamie Whincup, together with Craig Lowndes, finished in fourth position in car number 8, the Holden Commodore. one of the other main drivers that unfortunately came to grief in those final few laps. It was looking like a real contest up until until something happened to his car, which made him drop out. Shane van Gisbergen, who was actually crowned the champion for 2021, he actually dropped out, but he was in second position for most of it and was really showing a lot of fight. Some of those laps in the last 20 laps were just incredible laps to watch between Chaz Mostert and Shane van Gisbergen. Try saying that after a few Chardonnays. But it was a great contest, but unfortunately something went wrong with his car and he started dropping out. He ended up not finishing. But so, yeah, supercar champion for the second time, a deserving winner of the championship, but certainly a great race. And anyone who watched it, you didn't even have to be a motor racing fan to really appreciate how fantastic that race was and how great a contest it was. It had me intrigued.
Yeah, Bathurst always does. I mean, it's the track, it's the potential danger.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's an institution. It's a shame it had that different spot on the timetable. Obviously because of COVID. Used to love it just the week after AFL Grand Final to be able to watch Bathurst. But yeah, it's an institution, isn't it, Vince?
It is, and indeed. And one of the other things I should mention in the motor racing world is that coming up in the next 24 hours is the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which is the last race in the Formula One season. And we've got two drivers on exactly the same points, Max Verstappen and, of course, the other idiot from England who I don't like. What's his name?
Hamilton.
Lewis Hamilton, that's the one. So I'm gunning for Max to win that race. I'm really hopeful that he ends up winning it, but we'll see what happens. We'll report in our final show of 2021 next Sunday night at 8:00. That'll be our last Blue Sunday program for the year. Then we'll take a couple of weeks off, but we'll certainly report back on the result of the Formula One's final race, which takes place in a few hours, I believe, in Abu Dhabi. So it might have even, has it been run yet? I don't think so. It might already be.
I think they're just starting. I think they're just starting.
I think they're about 6 or 7 hours behind us. So anyway, boys, thanks very much for your time. I can't believe we've gone nearly 2.5 hours. My phone hasn't gone off, but it might any second. But it's been a tremendous show. Lots to talk about. My God, I knew it was going to be a long show tonight because there's so much
to go through. Yeah, he's gone. There it is.
He couldn't lie. Yeah.
That's all good. Yeah, guys, I think we'll call it there. It's been a long show.
What a great show.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah, look, as been said, guys, we've got one more show before we wrap up for the year. And from there, we'll see you guys after that. Ta, guys.